9BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amers. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big-timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest buskeg hits. Chuck Munchie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, cute Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Al. And of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Keeping up with our tradition of complaining about how cold it is in our studio when we start the show, I'd like to say that if the Ravens are looking for a place to prepare for Buffalo, they could certainly conduct their walkthrough here in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Captain's log day 14. What is this now? Do we provide anything?
It's
Have you had any update on this?
Nah. Nothing to
Do,
share.
am I a bad employee if I say, hey, this is nuts?
No, I don't think you're a bad employee if you say that. I also don't think that anybody's going to listen or do anything about it if you were to say that. Because that's kind of what I said yesterday.
Yeah.
I was in with the boss, and I'm like, come on, really? What are we doing? We don't have heat in the studio every day. Gino's coming in looking like Burgess Meredith and Rocky. Yeah. I mean, come on, Rock. Come on. You're a contender. That's where we're at. We welcome you into the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. We've got a great show lined up for you as we continue to get you prepared for Bills and Ravens on Sunday. The tension is mounting. I've got people stopping me saying, I can't wait for the game on Sunday. Are you going to the game on Sunday? I'm going to the game on Sunday. People are just getting that jazzed up, just that geeked up for this is becoming the game that everybody is going to say they were at, even if they weren't at it. We don't even know how good this game is going to be.
I want to say this is the most pumped up people have been, but then, this time last year was like, oh my gosh, the Bills are finally getting Kansas City here, and will Taylor Swift be here and everything, and that didn't end so well, but we were all pumped up about that game too. This has a different storyline for sure here, and we're going to talk a lot of Bills here on the show today.
Absolutely. Jeremy White from WGR stops by at 4:25 this afternoon.
Yeah, he's been covering this team now for the better part of 2 decades. You hear him on the morning on our Odyssey sister station. I love getting Jeremy's thoughts because he's kind of a big picture guy with the Buffalo Bills. And hey, if the Bills do get by this, is there anybody stopping the Bills, or for that matter, the Ravens? I guess if the Ravens win this game, is there anybody stopping the Ravens?
Right. It's going to be tough to see anybody stopping either of these two teams based on what's going into this game and what could come out of this game with a future date potentially against Kansas City at Arrowhead. And I guess I would say if you're wondering who could stop these teams, it's the one guy that we really haven't spent a lot of time talking about this season because it wasn't really his best season statistically, and that's Patrick Mahomes, and all he did was lose one game all season to the Buffalo Bills. Mm-hmm. So if you can get by him at Arrowhead, yes, it'll be a trip to the Super Bowl well-deserved by either the Ravens or the Bills. We'll get to that with Jeremy White when he joins us at 4:25.
Dan Fate's 13 Wham Buffalo Plus coming up at the bottom of the hour. If you're comparing this year's team to last year's team, I mean, just go look at the injury report this time last year. Yeah, they are healthy. Now, Ray Davis was out there today in the Guardian cap, and actually, you know what?
Red non-contact jersey.
Yeah, so this just came over here as I'm pulling this up. You look at last year, you remember you had a linebacker that was on his vacation in A.J. Klein that was kind of
summoned into duty. And when you look at some of the replay of the highlights from the Week 4 loss, man, it's funny to think. Look, I'm not going to tell you that the size of Pat Ricard is going to be that the Bills are going to have an answer for that. I don't know that they do, but that guy was blowing up Balin Spector on those long Derrick Henry runs. It was an impossible matchup for who the Bills trotted out there, whether you're talking about Cam Lewis and Balin Spector. It just wasn't obviously their best defensive performance. It wasn't their best defensive roster. Going into this game, no excuses. You've got your guys. You've got everybody. Yeah, Codrington is practicing again. You would expect that he might be out there, even though I know there's images of Khalil Shakir outside in the snow fielding punts as well.
Yeah, Shakir then was very coy. He did speak to reporters just minutes ago, apparently saying, hey, if I'm called on, I will be ready. I still think if there's a key spot in this game, you might see Shakir. Hey, this wasn't the injury report that just came over. The Bills send out these alerts, and usually this is the time that they send it out, right as we're going on the air. You tell me, Danger, how big is the award if you've never heard of the award? Or maybe you've heard of the award. The Bills just putting this out that the Maxwell Football Club has named Sean McDermott as the winner of the 36th Greasy Neal Award for the most outstanding coach in professional football.
The Greasy what?
Greasy Neal Award.
What is the Greasy Neal?
Again, I've never heard of it.
Is that a football term? A Greasy Neal?
Greasy Neal. Let's go to the AI Googles.
Hey, good for him.
Greasy Neal.
Oh, it's a player.
Yeah, he was an American football player, coach. Yeah, this guy is like, okay, this is from ye old days.
I thought it was like slang from Urban Dictionary. Whatever you do, don't look up Greasy Neal on Urban Dictionary. You might be surprised or horrified by what you see.
Okay, so according to AI, established in 2001, the Greasy Neal Award is a distinguished honor in professional football awarded annually to the NFL's most outstanding head coach.
Yes.
The prestigious accolade recognizes exceptional leadership, strategic innovation, and significant impact on the game. Funny how they're putting this out here, Danger, because, well, in this release, I mean, these are facts. I mean, McDermott is only the fifth coach in NFL history with 5 straight 11-win seasons. The other guys, they're all Hall of Famers, or will be. Belichick, Reed, Tony Dungy, Tom Landry, Sean McDermott.
Yes.
Why are they putting this out, an award that none of us have ever heard of up until 5 minutes ago? I'll tell you why, because you brought it up yesterday. If the Bills don't win this game, it's not Allen.
Yeah. What does the award look like on Monday if they don't win this game? It's going to go. This is why I'll contend that the Bills have more pressure on them. You could say there's pressure on both, and I absolutely. It's not a stretch to say that both teams have a significant amount of pressure on them to win this game. But for me, it's a little bit more on the Bills, because this will be 3 straight division round losses to 3 different opponents that you need to get by in order to get to the Super Bowl, and it comes at a time when Josh Allen is in his prime. So I won't put the blame on Josh Allen. I don't think anybody will put the blame on Josh Allen, because we know what Josh Allen is going to do when he's out there. Chances are he's going to protect the football, and he's going to ball out and play Superman and have himself a day against the Ravens defense.
And I would say that this year's team exceeded expectation, and sure, we will look at that, but I don't know how you can say this isn't a 50-50 split, because if you have a 3-time MVP and you got him a Hall of Fame running back, one of the best in the game today, and you still couldn't get to the AFC Championship game, people are going to be pointing at Lamar. Harbaugh gets a pass in here because he's got the ring.
Yeah.
It's all it takes.
Yep.
One ring, I can't hear you because the ring is stuck in my ear. Blah, 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 blah. No, Lamar is going to have a significant amount of pressure on him in this game. He knows it. And the admission, he's not going to wear gloves, and he doesn't like cold. I mean, what are you trying to prove in this night?
There's something else that I want to get to in a second. But first, let's let you know that you can join us at any point here. The Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line is open at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub at 135 West Commercial Street in ER. GoodSmokeBBQ.com. It's something that quarterbacks in the postseason have done more of, but something that Lamar has actually done less of, and I'll explain. Do we have somebody waiting on?
Oh, yeah, we do. Linda from Webster joining us. Hey, Linda, how are you?
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for taking my call. So we can beat the Ravens. I will tell you why we can beat the Ravens. One is that we have rattled Lamar Jackson before, not just in the playoffs, but we have rattled him in regular season. Perhaps not this past game, the most recent one. We're going to get to that in a minute. Secondly, we have stopped Derrick Henry. We played Derrick Henry again when he was in Tennessee, and we were able to stop him. So we know how to do that. Now, this is my wild, crazy idea how to stop Derrick Henry, and that is you put Von Miller in as a linebacker, which he is listed on in the depth chart. He's listed as a linebacker because Derrick Henry is a load, and you need somebody who has the same height, weight statistics, because I looked this up, that can bring him down. And I think that putting Von Miller in as a linebacker and rotating people in and out of the secondary, just to keep them fresh, I think that can confuse Lamar Jackson too, because he can get rattled. And I think that our front four has to be on their game like no other. I think our secondary has to stick to the Ravens receivers like sticky paper. And I know we can win this game. I have no question about our offense. Our defense has to just step up. And my two magic words are special teams. Always. If you look at the most heartbreaking Bills losses there ever have been, it has come down to something with special teams. So that is my prognostication and free and wanted advice for Sean McDermott. And go Bills. And thank you for taking my call.
You got it,
wow,
Linda. Thank
Linda,
you.
Unleashing there, yeah.
Yeah, Linda was well thought out with that one.
Yeah, one thing I want she brings up, Derrick Henry. The Bills have stopped. Okay. They did. There was a wonky Monday night game from 2022 where the Titans came in and they got away from the run really early because the Bills were burying them. That night, Derrick Henry had a touchdown, but he only had 25 rushing yards. He has scored one touchdown or more in each of the last 6 games against Buffalo. He had 199, of course, against the Bills in that game against the Ravens. And 143 in a game against the Bills back in 2021. So, no, I mean, you're kind of cherry picking the one game there if you're saying, all right, the Bills have had success. They did it one time.
Yeah. I think, and it's in terms of rattling Lamar, this is what I wanted to bring up. I mean, a lot of times you rattle Lamar, but Lamar does it to himself. This is courtesy of Warren Sharp Football Analytics. He points out that there's a lot of mobile quarterbacks who increase their scramble rate in close games late in the season, the postseason. You're talking guys like Mahomes, who increases by 3.4%. Josh Allen increases by 2.7%. Jalen Hurts increases by 1%. Lamar actually decreases his scramble rate late in the season by 2.9%. If Lamar... And the thing is, if they get the running game going, you might not even ask Lamar to pass the football. But if Lamar, as a pocket passer, it's almost like you could tell mentally he's trying to shake the image that he's not a pocket passer and that he's only a guy who can, beat you with his design runs and not with his arm, where he'll stay in the pocket and he'll take sacks rather than scramble and make something out of it because there's nothing downfield. Those are the plays that hit. When Josh does it, it's going to hit. It's going to be positive. It might even lead to a score when the quarterback recognizes, I can tuck this, scramble, and we're going to live to see another day. Lamar does less of that late in the season, in the postseason, than his contemporaries, and I think that's a mental thing with Lamar. If you're able to rattle him, it's more likely that he's going to, again, try to pass the ball because they're behind. It's so critical for the Bills to get off to a lead. Give them a 7-0 lead, a 10-0 lead, and let's see what Baltimore looks like then.
Yeah, and the point about Von Miller, Von Miller does not have the lateral movement, I would say, in this stage of his career to be going back there and taking on. That is not Von Miller's game.
What we've heard all season long is what? Greg Rousseau. I mean, like we don't talk about Greg Rousseau not getting to double-digit sacks during the regular season in a contract year, no less. But Greg Rousseau can make himself a lot of money on Sunday if he does the thing that everybody says he's really, really good at, which is against the run. If Greg Rousseau can be that dominant force against the run, then I think Greg Rousseau stands to make a lot of money this offseason, and Derrick Henry might be a little bit more – he might struggle a little bit more on Sunday against the Bills. So I don't necessarily think Von Miller at this stage of his career is anything more than a guy you bring out on a passing down. End of story.
Let's talk about this Bills-Ravens matchup. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Matthew and Henrietta. What's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Quick question. Just want your opinions. For the opening coin toss, if the Bills were to win, would you defer or would you take the ball and hopefully try to score on the first possession? Because it seems like the Bills get behind in the first half, but they're able to kind of double up on the last drive and then the first drive of the third quarter. So to me, I was thinking about that earlier because it's plausible they could get behind in the first half, but they always find a way to kind of double up, building momentum into the second half, third quarter.
Let's remember history here. What did they do against them in Week 4?
So in Week 4, it was actually Baltimore winning and Baltimore deferring. The Bills, Matthew, they get the ball, they get it, and they're faced with a 4th and 2 on the 50. Now, haven't been too many, that's Sean McDermott going conservative. That was one. He's thinking, this is going to be a low-scoring game. It's two great defenses. Yeah. So what do the Bills do? They punt. It's at the 13, and the next play, Derrick Henry goes out the door 87 yards. So I think, Matthew, you're answering your own question, or maybe you're leading us down. It's beneficial. Don't change anything.
Defer.
You want the double dip.
Defer.
Yep.
I think they defer. I mean, you go ahead and defer if you win the toss and you manage the game in a way where, you can put yourself in the opportunity to steal a possession. Steal that possession if you can. So that's where I'm at. As much as I think that it's important that they get off to a fast start, they get off to an early lead.
That's where I was getting at.
Yeah,
yep.
if
your
defense
get the ball and score,
right, but
in the first possession, then that's a different story.
Or you let your defense set the tone, and you hopefully stop. I think Henry is going to have his way. I think he's going to get yards. Keep him out of the end zone. I think Lamar is going to have his way. I think he's going to get yards. Keep him out of the end zone. We've seen this team throughout the course of this year give up big plays, but not give up points. Taylor Rapp himself has prevented how many points with just effort? Running guys down at the end of a long play, pushing them out of bounds and holding them to 3 instead of 7, or forcing a turnover, whatever it is, a turnover on downs. So I feel like they're going to get theirs throughout the course of the afternoon. Keep them out of the end zone. And I say defer all day.
Matthew, good call. Appreciate that. 866-4FAN. I know this is a big game. Probably you can't hear it across the radio, but when Mike Danger is banging the console here.
You didn't hear me banging it on the console, right?
No, I could hear it just a little bit, and I could feel it coming across. Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry.
You're just like, that's
I'm not even
me
Italian, Chino, and what am I doing here talking with my hands? Hey!
You're from Spain, close enough. Your lineage, so.
We got Dan Fates joining us here in a couple few before we get to Fatesy. A reminder, by tomorrow at this time, we will be live from Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue, another Friday Football Talk Live. The playoff edition is happening tomorrow from 3 until 6, and we invite you to come out for
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
What they got brewing over there at Three Heads is pretty special. You can get a 4-pack to go for game day on Sunday of the limited run Leaping Hazy IPA Playoff Edition. That's available only at Three Heads and only while they last. We invite you to come out and get yours and get some Freddy's Wood-Fired Pizza as well. This is where you want to pregame a few days before the actual pregame. We will be at Three Heads from 3 until 6, Atlantic Avenue, in the neighborhood of the arts. Danger and Battaglia. Friday Football Talk Live, the playoff edition on the Fan Rochester. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing all of our friends and all of our regulars. And big thank you to everybody who's already sent us on X at the Fan Rochester their RSVP that they will be making an appearance. Joining us tomorrow, by the way, on the show at 3:25, we'll talk to Chris Trapasso, our buddy from CBS Sports, and also former Baltimore Raven, former Syracuse Orange player, offensive lineman Adam Terry, stopping by during happy hour tomorrow, live from Three Heads.
We got Dan Fates, Buffalo Plus 13 Wham coming up. Let's get one more card. Dave in Rochester. Hey, Dave, what's up, buddy?
Hey, listen, I just wanted to let you know, it just dawned on me that the Bills could actually avenge all their losses. So if the Rams somehow make it to the Super Bowl, if the
Texans somehow beat the Chiefs.
Right, and we somehow beat Baltimore, that's 3 losses that they would come over and avenge for the year. So
Yeah.
pretty cool thought. Hopefully the stars align and that happens. Go Bills.
All right, thanks,
Appreciate
Dave.
it. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, the Sean McDermott Revenge Tour. Oh, you beat us in the regular season. Let us beat you when it matters.
What's more unlikely, the Texans winning into Arrowhead or the Rams winning 2 straight?
I don't hate the Rams. I know that we're talking about weather and the Rams in Philadelphia, and that might alter how they're playing. They're playing really good right now. I think they're going to give Philly a little bit of a run.
But that line is fishy. You're getting 6 points?
Did I see that the line moved another half point in favor of Baltimore today? Is it 1.5 now?
I go to BetQL for all my lines. So
that's a
here,
good place to go for
that's
all your
always
lines.
like
Yes, sir.
stand by as we're going to go.
I've got it at -1 at BetQL right now.
-1 at BetQL as well.
Dan Fates, 13 Wham Sports, BuffaloPlus.com. We will continue to discuss this matchup between the Bills and the Ravens next on The Fan Rochester.
You're listening. Sports Update.
Bills practicing indoors today for the most part. Wide receiver Khalil Shakir was fielding punts out in the snow. Ray Davis was at practice wearing a Guardian cap. Josh Allen talking about that Ravens defense.
He's a heck of a player, though. I mean, he's flying around all over the field. He's a ball magnet. They got some absolute studs on the defensive side of the ball, too. So, got to be aware of where he's at, along with a few other guys. But, slightly different role than what we saw earlier in the year.
Talking about Kyle Hamilton. Dan Bates, 13 Wham and Buffalo Plus joining us next here in the Sports Bar. The game can be heard Sunday at 96.5 WCMF. We'll join the game right after Amherst Hockey. The Amherst are in Hershey. One other Bills note, head coach Sean McDermott named the winner of the Greasy Neal Award, an award given out for Coach of the Year. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Man, he's a elite player, huge fan of Lamar for a bunch of these years now. We got the battle of the MVPs, this weekend, and it'll be good. They got a really good team, got a lot of respect for their coaching staff as well and their front office over there. Obviously, you got Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, two elite players. We got a great team as well. We got a pretty good team as well with a lot of great talent over here as well, and that's why you play the game. I'm sure they like their chances and we like ours.
That's Von Miller, Buffalo Bills edge rusher, talking about the opponent on Sunday. It's the Baltimore Ravens. Dan Fates, 13 Wham Sports and Buffalo Plus stops by the Sports Bar now. Dan, I've been asking this question, and Gino says you could really say it's either team, and I would listen to that. But I want you to pick one because I know you're not afraid to take a stand. Which team has more pressure on them come Sunday?
It's the Ravens. And I've said this, and it's part of the reason why I think that Josh Allen wins the MVP. They have overachieved this year. You go back to training camp. This was a year in transition, getting rid of Diggs, bringing along a younger roster, revamping a wide receiver room that doesn't have anybody with 900 yards. This was a year of a soft reset, and Josh Allen proved that he's the leader that they hoped he could be and step up in that locker room. But this is still a Ravens team that is stacked. They didn't go out and sign Derrick Henry to lose again in the divisional round of the playoffs. They did it to get to the Super Bowl. So their defense, their pieces, their roster is better. It's a better roster than the Bills. So to me, for all of the Bills having lost 3 straight years here in the divisional round, I still think there's more pressure on the Ravens.
Even with that, what you just said there, because that to me is the killer. If you lose a third straight year at home in the divisional round to 3 separate opponents, that feels like a really, really bad look, not just for the head coach, but for a quarterback who doesn't have an All-Pro, who doesn't have an MVP, who doesn't have a Super Bowl appearance. I'm just trying to imagine what the world looks like on Monday, win or lose for the Buffalo Bills, and certainly if it's a loss, I have a feeling I know where the daggers are going to go.
Yeah, it's definitely still context provided in that. There's still this roster. I remember sitting at training camp, talking to other people, being like, this could be their best roster or their worst roster. They still have flaws. They still need to have guys that can win one-on-one. If you're talking about a position group that needs to step up, and it's obvious that you sit there and go, the D-line, you got to stop the run. You got, Bean's got to figure out the D-line. You got to figure out a pass rusher. I also look at this, too, of the wide receivers got to step up. This is the group that they brought to the dance. So now you got to dance with them. And in a game that we're expecting to be this high-scoring shootout, you're going to need guys to separate and get open and help the quarterback. Josh can only do so much. He's going to be spectacular. That's not a hot take. But this roster has flaws. Josh has been really good at covering up a lot of them, which, again, is why I think he's the MVP. But I think there needs to be some context as to where you thought this team would be and the expectations before the year and where you are now.
Dan, if I'm going to say what are the main keys for the Buffalo Bills to pull this off, and I don't know if they have the personnel. Daquan Jones at one point before he got hurt last year, I thought he was playing at an All-Pro level, but he hasn't been quite the same. He was
good last week.
Yeah.
He was really good last week.
Yeah, but I'm still concerned, with Derrick Henry and, the middle of that Bills defense. Can they get the job done?
Great question. And I think what it comes down to is Sean McDermott's ability to adapt as a coach over the years. and his ability and Bobby Babbitt's input on this, the Bills have not been the same defense that we have learned and grown accustomed to in the Sean McDermott era. And for everybody right now that's screaming at their radio going, Dan's an idiot, like Sean stinks as a defensive coach and all this stuff, one thing that Sean has done this year is it hasn't been the same old Sean McDermott zone defense. He has adjusted. He's played more man. He's gone away from nickel at times and gone with a 3-linebacker formation and groupings. That's where I think this – I know what you're saying about the interior of the D-line. They got to step up. Like, Daquan was really good last week against Denver, against a pretty good defensive or offensive line. Ed's going to have an impact penetrating, making Derek hesitate a little bit. But the fact of, like, the X factor to stopping Lamar will absolutely be Matt Milano and what he did kind of looking like himself last week, covering Bo Nix and stuff like that. But I also think it's Dorian Williams. Like, he's the hammer. He's going to be the guy that they're going to have to put out there taking Taron off the field. So while I also look at the D-line, like you're saying, Gene, I look at the ability of Sean, who has adapted and changed and learned that you can't just sit in nickel and play zone the entire time. They will play man. They will make Lamar beat them and throw into tight windows, and they will bring in a third linebacker when they need to stop the run.
Who can account for Patrick Ricard from the Ravens? Because watching some of those highlights from week 4, that guy, I mean, look, he was mauling guys like Cam Lewis and Balin Spector, but he's still he's a 300-pound plus fullback who's paving the way for Derrick Henry and everything that he's done this year. Who do the Bills have that can account for that in trying to slow down this offense?
They really don't. I mean, it's going to have to be somebody just eating his face mask. Like, you're just going to have to take the beating and the punishment. And whether that is a guy, like guys that come in, whether that's Jordan Phillips to try and go size on size, that's been the weakness is, does this Bills D-line that is undersized have enough? So you're going to have to try and find ways to not allow him to run you over, and whether that means getting around him, whether that means getting lower than him, cutting him down before he can cut you down. It is a chess match, unlike I can think before, because I picked Baltimore back in week 4 because of the injuries, because of no Bernard, because of no Taron, because of no Milano. I just thought it was a bad mismatch at the time. I think if there's a time that, they talk about peaking at the right time and playing your best football at the end of the year, the Bills' defense, their rush defense, has been better the last 5 or 6 weeks. They're limiting about a yard less per carry over the last 5 to 6 games. That's encouraging signs. Obviously, it's going to take a step up going up against this rushing attack, but at least there are some encouraging signs of, hey, maybe they're figuring this out.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, another point too. That week 4 game, the Ravens were 1-2, and the idea of going 1-3 for that team must have been unappealing. So yeah, that was a bad spot for Buffalo for sure. Here's my question, and it just about the Bills' running attack, because we're all going to focus on the quarterbacks and who's going to have the better quarterback. But will this game be just as simple as who's going to run the ball better? Because we've had some satisfying Buffalo Bills, victories on the ground. The Cowboy game last year, but what Buffalo did last week, and Alec Anderson a little dinged up here, but using Anderson, using their own fullback. Let's not forget you have Reggie Gilliam kind of leading the way. 41 minutes time of possession, Dan. Just is that really kind of the blueprint for this game? Don't really necessarily rely on Josh. Just do that.
It's tough, Gene. And the other reason I fight back about that, because I was thinking about this game more and more. And, they always talk about, hey, don't make mistakes. I look at this game as go out and make big plays. Like, I really do it. And Mike was talking about it this week, too, of, like, when you go into that Lions game, you kind of know, like, hey, you have your offense. You want to be methodical. You want to put quality drives together. Sometimes there's like, hey, we got to score, and we got to score now. And so the Bills and their ability to run the ball has been great. Hand up, as a guy that does not like running the ball for many years, it's been creative, it's been effective, but what that does and what that creates is fewer possessions. And the Bills only had 3 possessions in that first half for as much as they held the ball in that first half against Denver. When you have fewer possessions, you're creating a game that has higher variance because you're not getting as many times with the ball. So if you have that turnover, if you are forced to punt, it's magnified more. I think that you almost want to get in a little bit of a track meet with Baltimore of going shot for shot. Get Josh the ball more and more. As many times as you can get him the ball and get on offense, I think the better you're going to be in this game. So I don't look at this one as necessarily as much as controlling, it's scoring. And it may have to be scoring in a hurry.
Dan, I want to go back to the defense, and I'm fairly certain you were around Rasul Douglas post-game against Denver, and he had some comments where he was basically saying, hey, the media was telling us that we couldn't get off the field in third down. How did we look today? He's feeling himself. He brought in Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver also feeling himself. These guys made it very clear they're hearing what is being said about them, and they don't have to listen very hard. I mean, we talk about the All-Pro snubs and the MVP race and the Pro Bowl and everything that's going on. How much of a chip do you think they have right now? Do you think that actually is going to translate into a difference in performance come Sunday, or is it just all mental?
I think it's a different mindset. When we talked to Daquan Jones yesterday, and he always had my favorite quote last year before the Steelers game, and kind of going, they went from playing Miami in Week 18, fast, high power, to a Steelers team. And Daquan said it's playoff football, and his words were, sometimes it comes down to a man whooping another man. And I go, that's awesome. Like, that's what this comes down to sometimes. And when you go to face the Ravens, he talked about having a nasty mindset. And maybe that is the anger, that's the criticism they've heard, that they can't stop the run. But I did see more of a fierce, angrier tone, a nastier phase of this D-line last week. So I think that plays into it. I think they're hearing that they're underdogs at home for the first time in playoff history, or since Len Dawson was this game in 1963. I was just looking up. So they hear all that noise, and for a team that's really good at making adjustments, I don't think that gets overlooked enough. If there's one thing I took away from another Bills game, is don't overreact to opening drive touchdowns. If Lamar and the Ravens march down the field on the Bills at 6:45 on Sunday, don't throw your hands up and say the game's over. The Bills, there's a bunch of phases of a game, and 60% of it is in-game adjustments, which Sean McDermott has been really, really good at in his career.
Dan, along those lines, we had a caller last segment who said, hey, what would your strategy be for the coin flip? If the Bills win the coin flip, do you defer as you normally do to try to steal that extra possession, or do you want the ball first? If you lose the coin flip and they defer, do you want the ball first so that you can maybe put the Ravens in a little bit of a hole? How would you handle it?
I'd still kick. I still think that double dip is huge for momentum, scoring before the half, getting the ball back. Just kind of knowing you have an extra possession in your pocket, I think is huge. Also, what they did in the Lions game. The Lions had the ball first, 3-and-out, touchdown, 3-and-out, touchdown. Like, that's the kind of game I'm kind of expecting. And again, I think I was out here like defending the Bills defense in that Lions game. Well, they gave up 40 points. Yeah, but they got 2 early stops. Like, that is – every punt I feel in this game on Sunday is going to be massive. Every third down stop is going to feel monumental. So to be able to do that early can set the tone in this game. I understand the flip side of what if Lamar goes down the field. So he goes down the field. The Bills have to play from behind. They've done it a lot this year. It's not unfamiliar territory to them. So I'd still kick to try and keep that extra possession.
Dan, a question for Uncle Dan, if I may. Explain to us why Baltimore is actually favored, which – you normally the team is at home. Yeah. Normally the team with the better record. I understand that Week 4 happened, but gosh, this is almost Sean McDermott would want the Buffalo Bills to be an underdog.
Yeah, they love this. I think this is a little bit of recency bias. The Bills opened up as 1.5-point favorites, and it quickly flipped. Now a lot of people say that's sharp money. That's the professional money. Sometimes that comes in later in the week. I think if you like the Ravens, you thought we'll take the points, and that's it. I just think I really like the Ravens. They're a very good team. Lamar could be MVP just as much as Josh could be MVP. There is a little bit of this, like, they're this unstoppable team over these last 8 weeks that I'm just having trouble really buying into. I know we talked a lot about the Bills' defense stopping the Ravens' offense. And, the Ravens' defense is so good, right, guys? Like, I just looked at it a little bit. They always say that since Kyle Hamilton moved back to playing his normal safety position in Week 11, that the Ravens have the number 1 defense in pretty much every category, right?
Coincides with the schedule.
You think? How about this? They played the Steelers 3 times over their last 8 games, guys. Like, the Steelers. They also played the Texans, the Giants, and the Browns. Let's not act like this is the 85 Bears defense. Like, there will be plenty of points and there will be opportunities in this game. The Bills were driving in that game against Baltimore for how bad they were playing until Joe Brady hit the dumbest button to hit a trick pass. Like, this will be, again, I guess I just look at this and everybody goes, this defense and that defense, and look at the Ravens, they're so elite. Like, because we always picture the Ravens and Steelers having great defenses. They're not this year. They're very good. Kyle Hamilton is exceptional. Patrick Queen is very good. They've earned all those things. I still think they have problems in the secondary. I still think Josh Allen will have his moments, but I just wish we could put a little context because out of the last 8 games, DVOA, weighted DVOA, the Steelers' offense is 20th. The Texans is 26th. The Giants is 30th. The Browns is 32nd. They haven't played over the last 10 games or 8 games a team with a weighted DVOA on offense higher than 12, and that was the Chargers. And it's not like they necessarily have an electric offense either. So context, I think, does matter when you start looking at some of these things. So I think both teams are licking their chops knowing every time we have the ball on offense, we're expecting to score.
Yeah, punt is literally a turnover in this game. I it won't be counted as a turnover, but it is.
Yeah.
It is absolutely a turnover. Dan, a lot is being made specifically today about the weather, about where the teams are practicing. Oh, they're practicing inside, not outside. The Ravens practicing inside, not outside. Lamar's not going to wear gloves. Lamar doesn't like the cold. Will weather be a factor in this game? I imagine it has to be when it's that cold. But does it shift in the Bills' favor, knowing that they've played in snow games this year and cold games already this year?
Yeah, I always think it matters. And while they won't admit it, and they always say like, well, there's guys that are from the Northeast that are on the Ravens roster, and I always say like, well, there's guys from Florida on Buffalo's roster. What's different is you just have a team that embraces it. Like Buffalo embraces the cold. Spencer Brown said he wishes it would be 0 degrees and 40-mile-per-hour winds. Like, they don't like it. Like, I always remember talking to Micah Hyde, and he's like, nobody likes playing in the cold, but the Bills just embrace it. They make it part of their identity. They're not scared of it. And while, there can be this false bravado about the Dolphins. We wish it was colder. We're not afraid of it. But you're not used to it, and you don't really like it. And it's what will be a factor is tackling. Like, it is going to hurt more. You're going to have to sacrifice more in these plays. I was just in a podcast, and they were talking to Booger McFarland about, like, what's the hardest part about it? And he's like, everything. Getting up, picking yourself up, taking the hit, being the guy to run down the field to try and trip somebody up. Like, all of that stuff will be harder. But I looked at the 49ers game. Like, the Niners looked like a West Coast team that didn't want anything to do with the snow. And they can come out and warm up in shorts and say they're not cold. They are. And the Bills have just been a team over the last McDermott era, 7 years. They've just performed well in it. They've just been one of those things that they've kind of embraced.
So, Dan, if the Bills get by this game, or if it's the Ravens, perhaps, we're all expecting the AFC Championship game to be at Arrowhead. Or is there any chance here? How would you handicap the Texans getting 8.5 going to Arrowhead?
Yeah, it's not enough points for me to bet the Texans. Did you see what Patrick Mahomes' numbers are in the divisional round in his career? He's like 71% completion, 16 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's never lost. Like, death taxes and Patrick Mahomes at least making it to the AFC Championship game. Like, that's his floor. That's his worst season, is going to the championship game. It's crazy. You're giving Andy Reid multiple days and weeks to prepare for this game. The Texans surprised me. I thought the Chargers were going to be better. The Texans got some dudes on defense, the Texans got some dudes on defense, but I don't know. I like Joe Mixon's confidence about saying he feels like he's got a little bit of the Bengals vibe when they went to Arrowhead and things like that. That's great. I would love the Texans to knock off the Chiefs. I'm sure everybody listening would love that. But I'm just not going to hold my breath on Saturday.
Commanders and Jaden Daniels going to Detroit on Saturday night. Is this the end of the magic for Daniels in his rookie season?
I think so. Really fun player. They have been magical this year from the field goal, doinking in off the upright. They've caught a lot of breaks. I feel like the Lions haven't caught any with all the injuries they've had. But Dan Campbell, that environment, extra rest, team on a mission, and that offense against a Commanders defense that is average at best. I just see the Lions putting up a ton of points, too many for Jalen Daniels to keep up with.
So the other game, and I'm sure you do this exercise too, we were doing just, guess the spread there, and I said, danger. Philadelphia, how many points are they favored by over the Rams? 2. No, it's actually 6. To me, it's a little bit of a surprise, but then you look at the Rams, and, all right, they only put up 19 against the Jets, and they only put up 13 against the Cardinals. They were, again, another bet. So which Rams team are we getting? We're getting this team that scored 12, 19, and 13 in December, or the team we saw against Buffalo and the team we saw against Minnesota there in the wild card?
Yeah, it all depends on how Matt Stafford plays. Like, strictly, their defense is young, aggressive, tons of fun. If you had to pick a up-and-coming defense that could take over the NFL for 5 to 10 years, I think you'd lean at what that front seven is that the Chargers can do when they actually have draft picks. It's crazy how they hit on all of them. But Stafford threw the ball awful those last 3 to 4 weeks. He was magical again against the Vikings. He still is a top 5 thrower of the football in the NFL. And when you can get that, you'll see. It's just a matter of, do they have enough horses up front to fight with the Eagles' line of scrimmage, which is just dominating both sides of the ball? I lean Eagles. Jalen Hurts has kind of been their one weakness of this team for how complete that team is as a roster. But I never count out Matt Stafford just throwing for 500 yards and going, absolutely inferno.
Did I hear Uncle Dan say earlier in our conversation that he liked Baltimore -1?
No.
Oh.
No. I'm going to take the Bills in this one. I think I have it 31-27. Just enough stops. Somebody's got to force a turnover. Look, there is a bunch of. It's funny going back to that first game. The Bills were just so bad. It was almost like they didn't even do any. Like they didn't show anything. Is how bad they were. And whether it's Balen Spector or Cam Lewis or Cole Bishop having to play in spots, it was just a perfect cocktail of everything going wrong that could go wrong. Talked to the team, yesterday. They said they learned lessons, and we kind of said, well, what lessons have you learned? And they were like, well, we were taught a lot. And it's like I think that there's the extra motivation. This is where they expected to be. I think they always knew they had another chance, or they would get another chance having to go through them. That's why it's so crucial to have this game at home in this spot. I just think Josh Allen carries this team, and I think the defense gets enough stops to get the win.
Dan, what can we check out 13 Wham tonight as well as Buffalo Plus this week?
Yeah, it is story today just about the fact of Terrell Bernard's message to the team. He told the defense, he quoted a Greek philosopher that no man walks through the same river twice because the river is not the same, nor is a man. So kind of going off of that, we'll be on the newscast, and then we have our Buffalo Plus live show on the YouTube channel at 7:15. And we talked to a reporter in Baltimore about what she thinks about the matchup and Lamar and big games. All that stuff's also on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel.
That is deep, man. We should light some incense here in the sports bar for that Taron Johnson inspiration, or I'm sorry, Terrell Bernard inspiration.
Terrell Bernard, yeah.
Yeah, it's great having you on with us, man. Looking forward to talking to you again next Thursday, and let's hope we're talking about a matchup with Kansas City.
Sounds good, guys. Appreciate it.
Dan Fates, 13 Wham Sports, Buffalo Plus, joining us in the sports bar. He has the Bills winning 31-27. I know a lot of people believe this could be a shootout. A lot of points will be scored. The over will hit. I'm going to kind of try to explain to you next why I don't know that you should believe the hype, because very rarely do these kind of matchups deliver on the hype that they get going in. I think we all remember the last time we saw a matchup between two stellar quarterbacks actually lived up to the hype. We don't want to remember that game, but we remember what that game was. That's living up to the hype.
Sometimes I don't remember how we got on topics. We got on the Rochester Royals yesterday somehow.
Is history even real?
History is real.
Oh.
Okay. You're talking history minor. All right. That's why, if you don't know, Dangerous, just joking. Some people still writing to me. I put it out there. Yes. In fact, there are people in our town that did see NBA action here way back in the day. And just a little tidbit here, something I didn't know. Because I feel like, oh, gosh, there's so many things we've screwed up over the years, and this is one of them. And then I realized, oh, maybe at the time this NBA thing wasn't kind of viewed the way we view it today, and I don't feel so bad.
Jeremy White going to join us in the 4 o'clock hour as well from our Odyssey Sports sister station, WGR in Buffalo. We have time for your calls if you want to pull up a stool. 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Bills back at work today. Wide receiver Khalil Shakir seen fielding punts out in the snow. Ray Davis still limited, still going through the protocol. He was at practice in a Guardian cap today. Terrell Bernard, linebacker, on that Raven offense.
It's a challenge. Really explosive and dynamic offense. I think it starts, with the guys up front. They got a really good offensive line, big, physical, and then, handing the ball to 22. He's a big back, obviously runs hard. And then, when 8 has the ball in his hands, he's dynamic too. So they got a lot of playmakers.
Jeremy White, WGR, will join us later this hour. We'll talk some Bills-Ravens here in the Sports Bar. The game can be heard Sunday at 96.5 WCMF. We'll join the game right after Amerks Hockey Sunday. The Amerks in Hershey. Sabres back in action tomorrow night against Pittsburgh. Buffalo coming off a win, their second in a row, as they defeated Carolina. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
If the Ravens play their game, and if they had the game plan that they did against the Steelers, and if they truly commit to the run and they execute, they're going to win the game. There's a reason why the Ravens are favored. There's a reason why they're power rated as the number one team in the NFL. It's because when they're clicking and they're rolling and they're playing their game, they're the toughest team to stop. Both teams have so much pressure on them because they've been so close. Okay, what's the next step? How can they get over that hump? Both teams need it badly, but obviously only one can advance.
Mike Danger.
Which team has more pressure on them? I think it's obviously the Bills. Obviously the Bills. They got to get this win. I think they have more pressure on them than the Ravens. And it does feel different this year than it did last year.
Gene Battaglia.
This feels like a bigger test, does it not? Yes. Baltimore's a good team. I think you want to keep that team off the field.
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Jeremy White from our Odyssey Sports sister station WGR in Buffalo joins us in the Sports Bar in about 20-25 minutes. We appreciate you stopping by. Rochester's only local sports talk show, Danger and Battaglia. On our YouTube channel where you can like and subscribe, we invite you to engage with us there at The Fan Rochester, our YouTube channel, also in the free-to-download Odyssey app. Very rarely, I believe, Gene, that when you have this kind of a matchup between two potential MVP quarterbacks, does it actually live up to the hype? I mean, let's face it, both of these coaches would love it if their defenses step up and have themselves amazing games and slow everything down. You could look back in history in the NFL, the past Super Bowls, when you had guys like Montana and Marino squaring off, or John Elway, or Elway and Brett Favre, Mahomes and Brady. It's always the better defense or the running game that tends to win out and dominate the opposing quarterback, which is why we pay so much attention to, and maybe we should pay more attention to what the Bills could potentially do with guys like James Cook and Ty Johnson. But you don't have to look back that far. I mean, you look at the 17 career meetings between Manning and Brady, and they never really played in a true shootout. It was usually Brady's team taking a big lead, Manning making a comeback. Sometimes he'd win it, but they met 5 times in the playoffs. The quarterback with home field advantage won every time. And I would love to be wrong with both quarterbacks, and I'd love to see high drama and lead changes. I think it's just going to come down to, I hate to be cliche, but things like turnovers, sacks, punts, who avoids the drive-killing holding penalties, drops by your receivers, and who runs the ball better with their quarterbacks doing some of the running themselves. Henry or Cook could end up being the stars of this game just as easily as Allen or Jackson this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, I believe, Danger, that you're right there. And also special teams is a factor here as well. You don't see it's happened a few times in the Super Bowl. There was the one Super Bowl with Brady and actually Jake Delhomme. They were going back and forth, and that was a lot of fun. You had Kurt Warner against the Titans throwing for over 300 yards. But when you get to these games in the postseason, more often than not, it's the quarterback. Let's just work our way down the field. And one thing that Dan Fates brought up, and I don't disagree with Dan on this, and it's just a different philosophy. Like, Dan thinks like the Bills should just kind of make this a shootout, and that'd be their best chance. And I'm like, you know what? They didn't do that against Denver. If you are so confident in your offense that you're going to put up 7 every time you're walking down the field, and you're going to do it slow, how much pressure does that put on the other offense?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. I mean, I don't anticipate that Baltimore's defense is going to give them as little resistance as Denver's defense did. We expected more. We expected Denver's defense to be tough. And look, they sacked Allen twice. That was the first time I think Allen has been sacked twice in a game since when?
Yeah, no, but that was the thing. Like, they're going to get after the Bills. They're like, okay, sure. You didn't have an answer for the running game, and you look at who the Ravens have faced here going down the stretch. There hasn't been a team that runs the ball like the way Buffalo does. And I think that is what the country's kind of missing on here. They're late to the party here. This Bills offense is so diversified, and if they want to run the ball this whole game and Josh Allen only puts it up 22 times, let's say, look, that would be a recipe to win the game, actually.
Stay in bounds. Let the clock roll. Just let it roll. Yeah. Take as much of that clock as you can take. In that regard, I believe it'll be a lower scoring game. I actually think the under is a smart play in this game come Sunday night.
Yeah, that's it. We welcome your calls at 866-4326, 866-4FAN. This time yesterday, we brought up a simple question, Danger. Can anyone tell us what it was like to go to a Rochester Royals game? And yeah, the old man music. I remember how this came up yesterday. It was our buddy Zig Fracassi, who he's a friend. I could just kind of say this jokingly, half jokingly. Was he smoking?
Was he high?
Yeah, was he high? Was he eating gummies? Like, hey, you guys still have time to prepare for a 75th anniversary party for the Rochester Royals winning the NBA championship. And like, wait, is that this spring? No, it's actually the spring of 2026, April 2026. Okay, yeah, that might be fun. Don't give me a reason to get together at Three Heads, all right? Certainly that could be a fun afternoon.
We raise a Rochester Royals jersey into the rafters.
Yeah.
But it won't say a name on it. It'll say Icecapades.
Well, at this time, so people writing back, I put this out there, and the one story that was shared with me, it doesn't make me feel so bad, and this was, you may know this guy, Larry Bump, longtime Red Wings statistician who now lives in Dallas, kind of semi-retired. First time I saw the Royals was in 1957 against the Celtics in a building called the Boston Arena. The circus was at the Boston Garden, so the Celtics had to move.
Okay. That shows you where the NBA was.
Shows you where there was. I'm like, that can't be right. It is right. Mm-hmm. So what was the Boston Garden? It still exists today. It's now Matthews Arena on the campus of Northeastern. Okay. This is the arena that they're going to have to tear down. It's been over 100 years, but the foundation shot, so nothing from any preservation society is going to save this arena. It sat 5,600. That was it. So for the Boston Celtics, you were in a 5,000-seat arena at the time, and I'm thinking, even in the 80s, the Celtics exported games to Hartford. So it's not like the NBA was this, oh, my gosh, we had this great jewel. How did we let it go? I don't know. At the time, it was just kind of something that was behind Amerks hockey at the time.
Right. I'm trying to think of what we could look at now and say, oh, that's like what the NBA was back then.
Don't laugh. If we're projecting like 30 years down the road, the Western New York Flash, when they were here, it was – kind of had that semi-pro feel to it, even though you're bringing in these big names, but it wasn't drawing anybody. But now these franchises are going for hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Is there a league that exists right now, a pro sports league that exists right now that 30, 40, 50 years from now could have the kind of growth that the NBA had once they moved on from Rochester?
I don't think indoor lacrosse would be it, because that's not lacrosse. It's kind of a different version of box lacrosse. Isn't the thing?
Is it pickleball? Yeah. Is it esports? I don't know. I'm struggling with trying to figure out what it is. What's the golf thing that they're doing now? That's professional golf, but it's like made for TV events. I don't know, man. It's hard to project, and I guess. They had to have known, the NBA owners had to have known, all right, we have something, but they didn't really know what they had until you started getting some stars, right? I mean, Dr. J, I think of guys like, those Celtics teams, there were plenty of stars on those Celtics teams. But then I think of like from our era, like in the 70s. It's like, oh, Dr. J's, that guy's legit. Oh, Magic and Larry. Magic and Larry were like superstars.
Well, the story was the NBA Finals were on tape delay.
Right.
And until Magic and Bird, who you knew from the college game, here they are in the pros playing in the two big markets at the time.
Yep. And then, of course, Michael Jordan changed the game, and it became this mass appeal product that everybody was familiar with. The Dream Team elevated it even further, and now it's sagging a little bit. The product is getting criticized by the people that are closest to it.
Well, this just came across as we were getting on the air. And there's part of the story that's being left out here, Danger, but I think we can kind of connect dots, okay? Here is the headline. So the agent for LeBron is Maverick Carter. Maverick Carter advising $5 billion effort to start new basketball league. Okay. Why would that be? And this is Shams Charania. He's been enlisted as an advisor for a group of investors seeking to raise $5 billion to form an international basketball league that would serve as a rival to the NBA. This is not being reported by ESPN first. This is Bloomberg. Where's that $5 billion coming from, Mike Danger?
The Middle East.
Yes. Yeah.
No hesitation.
Here it is. Here it is, right on our doorstep. We knew this was going to be coming, right?
Middle East. Yeah, you'll take the Saudis' money, and you'll create a basketball league that nobody will really pay attention to, but you'll get their money. And I see why you try to do it now, because the NBA right now feels vulnerable. And I was about to say, even though the ratings are sagging in the NBA, I'm not going to tell you that there's going to be contraction in the NBA. Like, it's still a growth product. It's still going to return on investment for the owners that are involved. And the product will get better as the season goes on here. We care about the postseason more than anything in the NBA because football season comes to an end and everything else kind of shifts in that direction. Teams, you start paying attention to teams like the Knicks, and you're like, oh, they're fun. But LeBron chasing the bag doesn't surprise me. And recognizing, yeah, there is money out there. It's just not American. It's not domestic dollars. It's Middle Eastern money. There already is. How many basketball leagues do we need? What's the thing that Ice Cube does? The Big Three?
3-on-3. You've got Unrivaled. You got all these other things. You've got the basketball league. You still have this semi-pro thing called the ABA, the Rochester Razor Sharks. That's still sticking around. There's a ton of basketball that nobody will ever watch. But the idea that, hey, can we come up with like a global basketball league? Is that even feasible? Could you even do it with the travel, something like that?
Well, if there's enough money being floated out there, maybe that's what it is. Maybe like you pay these guys a little bit more and load management becomes a thing of the past.
Well, can you imagine the pitch to Nikola Jokic? Would you be interested? No. You could play all your games at home. Oh, yes.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to deal with any parades in Denver. You just go home.
I want to go home.
And you make, $500 million. You make a contract worth over $500 million. Yeah, I think you would probably sign up for that.
I would think the NBA has to be seething at this. The guy they prop up, LeBron, his handler is like kind of.
Is any of that surprising to you, though? This has never been about. It's always been about LeBron. LeBron is a me guy.
I thought we haven't had expansion. They're just waiting for LeBron to get done. And they'll be like, here you go. Have the Vegas franchise, LeBron. Congratulations.
I shouldn't say anything negative. I mean, really should just appreciate that we have the opportunity to watch him.
Stop with the negativity.
He's, at worst, the second best basketball player of all time, but we need to appreciate him more. It's weird. It's a weird thing. We're going to get to Jeremy White here from WGR in just a few. Talk more Bills and Ravens. Loved our conversation with Dan Fates. I disagree with Fates. I disagree with you because you said that you believe that the pressure is on the Ravens, and I still think that the pressure is on the Bills. And I think evidence that the pressure is on the Bills is what they put out last hour while we were on the air. What was the name of the award that Sean McDermott won?
Greasy Neal Award, which is awarded by the Maxwell Club, and we're told it's very prestigious.
Yes.
I never heard of it. Well, ask Jeremy White if he's ever heard of the Greasy Neal Award.
Well, Sean McDermott won it. And, he is in some rarefied air with the amount of winning seasons, 11-win seasons he's had here. It's him and 4 other coaches?
It's him, and let's see if I can name this. Belichick and Landry and Tony Dungy, and there's one other. Andy Reid. Yeah.
So, that's you're in company with Hall of Famers and future Hall of Famers. You don't get the recognitions for, like, Coach of the Year because we know what that award is about. It's about exceeding expectations. Hell, this team exceeded all of my expectations.
Well, so why can't we have, like, an honest discussion about Sean McDermott, head coach of the year? What, it's going to go to Kevin O'Connell, right? Because, well, you lost your first-round quarterback and you brought in, kind of a guy that was on the street, Sam Darnold, and, hey, you won a lot of games.
Yeah.
Congrats.
He won 14 games with Sam Darnold. I'm not going to say he's not worthy of that award, but what Sean McDermott did this season with this roster exceeded my expectations.
But in the open put by Dan DeLorean, where he's saying the answer is obvious, it's the Buffalo Bills. It's not obvious.
I said that. That was me saying
that. Was it. Right. Like, that's like, if you had to take individuals, who's the more pressure on? Is it more on Lamar or Sean McDermott?
I'd say there's more pressure on – I still think there's more pressure on Sean McDermott than there is on Lamar Jackson. I absolutely think there's more pressure on Sean McDermott than Lamar Jackson because you looked foolish in Week 4, and you have to correct that with the pieces that you have, a healthy team, no real excuses. It's the divisional round at home and the third different opponent in this round. Losing to the Ravens after you lost to the Chiefs, after you lost to the Bengals, with a quarterback who's in his prime, and a quarterback who has some pressure on himself as well, who hasn't won an MVP, who isn't an AP first-teamer, all-pro, who doesn't have a Super Bowl appearance. I mean, everybody's playing for second behind what Mahomes and Reed have done. That's going to be lofty. If you can get, a win at Arrowhead next week for either the Ravens or the Bills, knocks a little bit of the rust off of, it knocks a little bit of, it puts a little tarnish on what Reed and Mahomes have done. But I can't get past the pressure that's on Sean McDermott and the Bills. I know they're not going to say they don't feel that, but it's there, man. I think it is really, really there. And yes, there's obviously pressure on Lamar Jackson. There's no pressure on John Harbaugh, but Lamar Jackson's going to feel some of that for sure. Lamar, why? I mentioned it earlier. Lamar in late season games and postseason games scrambles less. The play that almost guarantees you positive output, a scramble, recognizing I don't have anything downfield. Let me scramble and let me gain some yardage with my legs. Lamar, Josh Allen. They're both very good at it. Josh does more of it late in the season. Lamar does less, almost as if to say, no, I have to show the world that I am a pocket passer and I will make these throws. I hope that Lamar shows up on Sunday, but I don't even know that they need him to drop back and pass on Sunday if they're running the ball with efficiency.
Well, who's there? I would say Monken. He should just kind of
Monken.
Yeah, so they should just kind of, and I would say this also to Joe Brady, some design quarterback runs. Get those guys thinking in a different headspace here.
I don't know that you're going to have to sell either of them on that because the way the Ravens had Pittsburgh fooled last weekend. It wasn't brilliant. It was just it was mismanagement by the Steelers. Just no discipline at all. Fooled on every play. That RPO completely shelled Pittsburgh. They had no answer for it. They had no discipline. They had no idea where the ball was going. They were so focused on Henry that Lamar had his way.
Yeah, and then when you get to that point, you're not in a good headspace, and you find yourself Patrick Queen with his back turned to the ball. That image of Henry, and there are 6 Steeler defenders 1 yard behind trying to chase him down. There's no safety to help out.
Yeah.
That told me
they're all keying on Henry.
Yeah.
They were all keyed on Henry, and Lamar just had his way. We got to get a little bit deeper into the matchup with Jeremy White, who hosts mornings on our Odyssey Sports sister station, WGR in Buffalo, the host of the Jeremy White Show with Jeremy and Joe. He'll join us next. We have time for your calls as well before we get to happy hour at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. update.
Bills practicing indoors today, although wide receiver Khalil Shakir was fielding punts outside in the snow. Ray Davis at practice wearing a Guardian cap. Josh Allen on that defense led by Kyle Hamilton.
He's a heck of a player, though. I mean, he's flying around all over the field. He's a ball magnet. They got some absolute studs on that defensive side of the ball, too. So, got to be aware of where he's at, along with a few other guys. But, slightly different role than what we saw earlier in the year.
Bills-Ravens can be heard Sunday on 96.5 WCMF. We'll join the game right after Amerks Hockey in Hershey. Jeremy White, WGR, joining us next here in the Sports Bar. One other Bills note, head coach Sean McDermott named the winner of the Greasy Meal Award. That's an award given out for Coach of the Year. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
You have to get him before he gets going. So whatever provides you the opportunity to put quality tacklers at the line of scrimmage to try and stop his momentum, because once he gets moving, and to use the term downhill, you're in trouble and it's too late.
Evan Washburn of CBS Sports earlier on One Bills Live, the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia, back on the Fan Rochester. And excited to welcome in Jeremy White. You can hear him every morning on our Odyssey Sports sister station, WGR, in Buffalo. Jeremy, who has their hands more full, Sean McDermott with Derrick Henry, or are you with the little ones? How are you today, bud?
Boy, that's a push, let me tell you. At least Sean McDermott's only got to worry about Derrick Henry for about 3 hours.
Jeremy, thanks for taking the time out here. And gosh, when you look back, week 4, what are the takeaways? What are the things that maybe they're going to try to correct this time around as these two teams match up Sunday night?
I do think they're in such different places, these two teams, right? Week 4, the Bills' offense is still trying to find out what they are. Like, Amari Cooper's not a part of their offense at that point. Running backs are not a part of their offense at that point either. If you go back and look at the Houston game and the Baltimore game, you've got like one target to James Cook or one target to Ty Johnson. And, we've seen them really lean into that matchup. So the Bills are so different offensively. And then, of course, defensively, like the injury issues they had back then. So it looks to me like a very, very different matchup. I don't want to say that you should totally disregard what happened in the first one. In fact, I think leaning into it points out just how different it'll be. The Bills had, I did the numbers, 9 failed drives, which just never happens to this team. So they had a bad day. Baltimore had a good day. And even with all that, they had the ball down 11 in Baltimore territory before a trick play sent it all sideways. So it didn't have to be a blowout, and I don't think we're in for a blowout.
Yeah, Jeremy, I was going to ask you. I mean, when you have a matchup between two potential MVP quarterbacks, I just think rarely does it live up to the hype. We saw one unbelievable matchup between two quarterbacks a few years ago that we don't like to think about or remember in any way, shape, or form. But that one felt like a game that lived up to the hype. Will this be that kind of game? I mean, are you anticipating shootout, or do you think defense rules the day and it's more strategic and a lower scoring affair where possession is more critical?
I think a lot of times I think these games end up going low scoring first half, and then, maybe this is just like someone that bets overs occasionally. You see your number in the first half and it's like, all right, 10-7, we got a low scoring game, but watch out because the final's 31-28. Once teams start to feel the pressure to put points on the board, offenses, especially ones as good as this, start to lean in and really push the tempo. So I don't know about shootout, somewhere between shootout and defensive struggle. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if we end up with a, 28-23 kind of game where 2-3 plays could have turned it. I expect these offenses both to find their answers.
All right, Danger and I have this argument here, and he's going to say he's right. I'm going to say I'm right. I'm not going to say which side either of us are on, but I'll just ask the question straight out. Jeremy, which team has more pressure on them entering this game?
You're both wrong. I don't know. That's a tough one. Is it not equal? Don't they live the same life? I feel like the Bills and the Ravens live the same life with one key difference. Lamar is McDermott. And by that I mean Lamar's the one that has had lots of great regular seasons, and when he gets to this spot, it doesn't come through. I mean, Allen doesn't have that. Allen's got pressure because he's running out of time, but so few people think it will come down to him. There's such a belief that he's going to be excellent. So I think these two teams live the same life. They both made one AFC Championship game. They both lost to the Chiefs. They both live in the Chiefs world. And whoever loses here is going to be left with a, what are you doing with your life? How could you waste someone this good? So I think it's the same, but I want to put it on two different people: the quarterback for the Ravens and the coach for the Bills.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious as to what, for as much attention as Derrick Henry is getting going into this Lamar Jackson and what can he do with his legs, do the Bills have an answer for the Ravens fullback, for Patrick Ricard? Because that guy, in watching that Week 4 and the highlights of Week 4, granted it was against backups, but he was so impactful, and I just don't know who from the Bills defense is going to be able to overcome that guy's just his power, his size.
Yeah. I mean, that's where it comes down to. I think the most important player in this game is Terrell Bernard, identifying where guys should be. Him missing that game is more about, his ability. It's about him running their defense and putting people in the right spots. And, the thing about running the football, my belief is that people always want to say that running the football is 11 guys got run over and you're soft, but it's so much technique and it's so much where you're supposed to be and who's where and scheming right and gap integrity and run fits and 1/11s that, if you out scheme a team in a run game, you run for 500 yards. You don't have to be tougher. You just have to be better prepared. It's more choreography. It's more, it's just more coordinated. Whereas a passing game, you make one read, and if that looks good, you throw it there and you gain 9 yards. It's a lot harder to get 9 yards. Everyone's got to be doing their thing. So who stops Ricard? I don't know. Hopefully 11 players together just make it where it's not that big of an issue for them. EPA per play against the run, they're pretty good. They don't get burned in the run game, even though they're plays that we remember. So individual, I don't know. But I'm hoping they do have the answers.
How do they use Taron Johnson? Are they going to keep him? Are they staying the nickel in this? Is he coming off? I mean, I'm fascinated also because the last time we didn't really kind of get the true test. Now, of course, Matt Milano wasn't even healthy at that point, but neither was Terrell Bernard, neither was Taron Johnson, and Rapp also going off. So the idea of Taron Johnson, part one of the question, well, how would you utilize him in this? Is he actually coming off the field for Dorian Williams? And then would you expect the Bills, as they have in recent weeks, to go man-to-man and actually kind of dare Lamar to beat him downfield through his arm?
I would use Taron Johnson the way he always is, which is a nickel corner who is also a willing and able run defender. Last week, he filled a hole against the Broncos. He got hurt on the play, but, he steps into contact. He is not one to ever play with fear. He has thrown his body in there a million times and probably will again. So I would anticipate he plays an awful lot. Ideally, he plays a lot because the Bills get the Ravens in obvious passing situations, which is kind of what they want. So Dorian Williams, his kind of emergence this year has been a nice little bonus, right? But we had a caller call today that said, how about the Bills run a 5 linebacker set? And I thought, I'm not even sure they have 5 linebackers on the team. Yeah. Like this team runs 2 linebackers for the last 7 years. And I don't know that we should be sitting here thinking that they should change their stripes for this game. There's, of course, going to have wrinkles or answers or whatever it might be. But I think Taron Johnson is very valuable. That said, Zay Flowers out is really big, really big for Baltimore because when they are in passing situations, not a number one target, the tight end's okay, but Rashad Bateman, they don't really have anybody at receiver who they can count on. Tylan Wallace, Rashad Bateman, and after that, it is pretty slim. So I hope Taron Johnson ends up on the field plenty. I have faith in him in the run game.
You think the defense is feeling himself a little bit after the way they handled Denver? Because some of the post-game comments that I heard from, specifically from Rasul Douglas, a little bit from Ed Oliver, they're hearing the noise about you guys can't get off the field on third down. How'd you guys do again? There's overall a team that has a pretty significant chip on their shoulder going into this game, wouldn't you say?
I would think so. The other thing they have, they've got something to prove. They've got home field, which I think could be, of course, big. When you're trying to make sure you get off on the snap count, if Baltimore, their linemen are a little bit slow, if they can't communicate the same way, and the Bills' offensive line had tons of trouble in that opening round matchup. Connor McGovern actually went out for a little bit of time, had to be evaluated for concussion. So, again, another one of the things that mixed in there. I think crowd noise is big. All you need is a couple of false starts. All you need is tackle to get a late start and have to hold. And Baltimore does take penalties. They're near the top of the league and how often they take penalties. So the Bills, what are people expecting from this defense? If they gave up 24, I think most people would take it. So they don't have to be perfect. They just have to kind of do what they did most of the season, which is bend and make a play. Somebody punch a ball free, somebody force a turnover. This team lived by turnovers the entire season, and that's probably the recipe for getting it done on Sunday.
Jeremy White, Jeremy and Joe, WGR. You can hear it on the Odyssey app, WGR 550 out of Buffalo. Our guest here in the sports bar. Jeremy, I'm kind of floored might be too strong a word, but I am surprised the Bills are a home underdog for the first time in their history. They started out as a favorite, flipped it. I would imagine kind of going on with a chip in the shoulder, Sean McDermott kind of enjoys that. It just kind of also speaks to, all right, maybe the public really isn't paying attention to what's happening here in Buffalo, that maybe actually this year might be different.
Yeah. The Ravens have a historic offense in yards per play, and there's no denying that. The Bills had a historic offense. Like, with 2 weeks left in the season, they were averaging, in terms of points per drive, up there with the 2007 Patriots. Like, one of the best offenses of all time. And the streak of 30 points in a game, their floor is like 28 points. So I do think people are sleeping on the Bills offense a little bit. And there's a lot of buy-in. Derrick Henry has had 4 massive weeks in a row. So I think there's some recency bias there, treating the Ravens like they're some, 17-0 team. This team lost 5 games. And Henry's a part of all those games, and Lamar was a part of all those games. They didn't have some stretch where they were missing their starting quarterback. They legit lost more games than the Bills, and they lost to some teams that are that good. So I don't think they're unassailable. I think the Ravens being favored is a little bit more of people buying what they've seen the last couple of weeks, which is Derrick Henry looking like he's on a mission.
And it's different this year in that you're going into this game, you're going into this postseason, Jeremy, healthy. I mean, your biggest concern is the calf of Alec Anderson and Codrington, and it sure seems like Davis is trending in the right direction in terms of clearing concussion protocol for Sunday. I go back to the last time we got the chance to hang out, which was training camp at St. John Fisher University. And I think we had a lot of questions back then. How surprised are you at how this season has gone for the Buffalo Bills?
Modestly surprised. I'm not surprised that Allen's amazing. I am surprised that Joe Brady has been able to get exactly what he wanted out of his offense, and that everything is hummed and everybody eats, nobody outside that's all that dangerous. I'm surprised that has worked. And to a point where, like, I still don't necessarily want that to be their plan the whole time. I want the best players they can possibly get. But, of course, like, Brady's been so good they might lose him as a result of this. So yeah. I'm somewhat surprised. I may be more surprised that both Miami and the Jets completely fell apart, did not even compete. Like, it was, people talk about it like the Bills were thrown, left for dead. And they weren't. They were just thought of as one of 3 teams that could win the division. And the other 2 didn't show up. So I'm surprised it was so easy for them. I'm surprised they were able to beat the Chiefs and beat the Lions and win some of these games that they did. So, yeah, I'm surprised it looked as good as it did, especially how good the offense has been.
You brought up earlier, Jeremy, Sean McDermott, and how there is pressure on him, certainly. Are we seeing a different, more relaxed Sean McDermott this year? And, well, sometimes in pressure situations, you revert to your old self. And, I mean, Jeremy, one fear I have going in this game, it's 4th and 2 at the 50, and you would punt. Your thoughts here on McDermott and how he's come along this year?
It's another thing that sticks out about the first game. They had like 3 punts that didn't really line up with what they would normally do, and I don't know what the reason for that was. He's been more aggressive. He's, I think, adapted to, well, I have Josh Allen. He spoke directly to the 4th and 2 they went for against Kansas City, which I think was an obvious go for it. It's the kind of thing where he said, well, we have Josh Allen, they have Patrick Mahomes, I got to be aware of that stuff. So he's always been pretty good with that. If you watch other coaches that make the playoffs, one of the coaches they're playing against, John Harbaugh, is not very good with it. Sean Payton, who they just beat, is not very good with it. So I've had faith in McDermott for a good amount of time to do the right thing on 4th down calls, clock management. He's okay. There are a lot of guys that are a lot worse. Is he more relaxed? I don't buy that. It's about to really ramp up. And if they're down, 14-0 at home, that's intense. So there's pressure. It's kind of like the Bills wanted to pretend there was no pressure on them the entire year. Well, guess what? Now you're home in the divisional round, the round you always get knocked out in, and you could claim you don't feel any pressure, and that's great. But as soon as it's over, it'll all come right on you.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to make a bold prediction before the season started, Sean McDermott doing Snow Angels on ESPN would probably be about as bold as you could get.
Probably. I mean, it goes back to, Tyler Dunn wrote the piece for Go Long TD, was a big, big, elaborate piece. People like to talk about it as a hit piece. It included some unsavory parts, but there was a lot in there that was complimentary. It was a comprehensive piece, and he has since sat down with McDermott. So I mean, take that for what it's worth. The coach probably didn't like all that being written about him, but he saw that as, okay, people are saying this about me. I mean, I believe what was said, and if a lot of stuff gets out about you and you maybe don't like some of it, you might think, maybe I have to change the way that I am because I don't want to be perceived that way. I don't want to treat people that way, even if I have a different view of it. So, I think they're probably getting a better version of McDermott. But again, he could be a jerk and win. Bill Belichick did it for decades. So it's going to come down to the results in terms of how Bill fans.
Jeremy White,
react.
WGR guest here. Jeremy, if I can ask you another big picture question here, and this one being about Josh Allen, because I said during training camp, hey, if the Bills can finally get Josh Allen to an MVP level, they're going to do this. Well, he's not going to get the MVP probably, but he is at that MVP level. How was he able to kind of bring his game to this level, would you say? Was it just as simple as, all right, we need to kind of remove Diggs here and just kind of, reset?
I think it's a function of the offense. I think it's shorter passes lead to fewer shots down the field. Of course, his depth of target is way down. That's why Yak is up. I'm not one to necessarily think all these things are what they needed. It was a different style, and they're playing a different style, which I think is just inherently led to fewer turnovers. Allen doesn't have to hold the ball as long. His decisions are easier. So, he elevated his game. I'm not one that ever worried about the interceptions. I kind of never cared. His interceptions always came down the field. He has the active streak for how long it's been since he threw a pick six. Like, his turnovers are different. And I think turnovers are overrated to begin with, especially when he's as good as avoiding sacks as he is, which is the best in the league. So I think the turnover stuff kind of satisfies a lot of the narratives. It's probably one of the reasons he's got more chatter for MVP this year than last, even though last year, I don't know, he might have had a better year statistically in other areas. So turnovers matter to a lot of people, and if they matter to the coach and matter to the coordinator and the quarterback feels good about it, then that's great.
And you mentioned it earlier. I mean, Joe Brady has done such a good job that he's elevated his own profile to the point where he might end up somewhere else next year. Do you think that's realistic? I mean, it's realistic, but do you think that happens? Do you think Joe Brady is with the Bills or with the field as far as a coach next year?
I think he's with the Bills next year. I don't know that the jobs are that good. Although Ben Johnson maybe taking Vegas would be strange. The Bears job, I'm not sure about ownership. I don't know that there's a bunch of great jobs. So maybe not. I would bet Joe Brady is a candidate next year that takes a job. He's done an awful lot. He deserves a lot of credit, but maybe one more year with the Bills is what I would predict.
Jeremy, just how would you rather write the story here? One more home game against the Houston Texans, if that happens, or in order for the Buffalo Bills, when they do win the Super Bowl, do you have to do it through Kansas City? Would you want to vanquish that team and do it on your own?
I mean, that would be nice, but I mean, I would love to go to the AFC Championship game. One other righted wrong, as much as you want to say about having to beat Kansas City, one righted wrong would be 13 seconds where you were supposed to host the AFC Championship game. So I'll take that righted wrong, and I'll be happy to play Houston in that one.
Well, Jeremy, it's great having you on with us. Really appreciate you giving us some of your time. Looking forward to this weekend, and we'll be catching you out in the Odyssey app as well.
Looking forward. Who's on the show tomorrow? Matt Milano on the show, Jeremy?
Oh, yeah, 4 hours. He's ready. 4 hours of Matt Milano. He's in studio with James Cook and Amari Cooper. It's going to be a real chat fest.
We've got it all wrong, man. I mean, if we want that engagement, those clicks, we just got to start making stuff up, Jeremy. Let's just make it up and fire it out.
I'll tell you, it's the way to live, apparently, right?
Unbelievable.
Jeremy, thanks for your time, bud.
Thank you.
There he is, Jeremy White. You can hear him tomorrow morning in the Odyssey app at our Odyssey Sports sister station, WGR in Buffalo.
I think if you're a Bills fan and you're going to be, we got to go to Kansas City. You'd rather be home against Houston. Yes, of course. But wouldn't it feel so good to do it that way?
Yeah, who was it earlier this week? I want to give credit where it's due because they were replying to something we were talking. We were talking about this specifically earlier in the week. It was Mike. Michael said, just for the record, I witnessed that Red Sox run in 2004 when the Red Sox beat the Yankees, and I, for one, say, yes, bring on the Chiefs. Defeating the ghosts of the past is well worth it. It would be a little bit sweeter. I know you wouldn't be at home, but it would be a little bit sweeter if you got to the Super Bowl by beating Kansas City. For sure.
I don't think if you ended up winning the whole thing, and maybe there would be the take out there that, well, you didn't have to beat Kansas City. Who cares? Kansas City wasn't there. That's not relevant. Whatever path gets you there in the end, but don't be upset if you got to go to Arrowhead. Honestly, like, who do you think is the tougher matchup? The Bills going to Arrowhead or this Sunday? To me, it's this Sunday.
Yeah.
I just think that this is the team that you actually match up not real well against.
Yeah, it's a bigger test. A less familiar opponent. And an opponent that's coming in hot that a lot of people think they're going to win this game. I think Buffalo going to Kansas City. Kansas City's probably still the favorite because it's at home, but that's a tight matchup that the Buffalo Bills can have shown that they can win in the past. Appreciate Jeremy joining us, shared some of his insight here in advance of the divisional round playoff matchup on Sunday.
I can't believe, because you're the driver of the show here, Danger. There is this one story that is being reported today that you haven't addressed. And I just want to kind of say, we're going to have a party here in the sports bar if I end up winning the bet, if I end up getting a refund and an extra box of wine. I get two boxes of wine.
You're talking about the Belichick stuff, right?
Oh, who cares?
No, it's not a who cares. Bill, this isn't weird that he hasn't signed his contract? Dude, that's weird. You trotted out, you did the press conference, you did everything else, and it's being reported he hasn't signed his contract. Who is putting that out there and why?
I like that. I like that you've got his guy, Lombardi, basically refuting every report that's out there. Like, he's become like Belichick's consigliere. He's like, hey, yeah, so what? He hasn't signed the deal. He's on a recruiting trip. He's out there making kids offers they can't refuse. Everything you're saying is false. He brought me along to be the GM. Now leave us alone. Let us worry about the Tar Heels.
My other favorite part of this whole kind of story developing is Ed Werder comes out and says, oh, it's a binding agreement. Okay, full stop. Because these contracts, if you're a public university, they're public. You can read it. It literally says in the contract, which is not signed, this is a non-binding agreement.
And then Michael Florio from Pro Football Talk, who's a lawyer, shows up. Hey, let me tell you something. You don't know what binding and non-binding is, pal. Ed Werder sleeps with the fishes. He's not going anywhere. He's with the Tar Heels. He's not going anywhere, Gene. I have cracked open the box of wine, so no returns. I'm drinking it now. I'm enjoying it now.
Okay, then you are going to go shopping, and you're going to go. I'd also, if you
let
want
it
to
go, man.
No letting it go.
Let it go. It's over.
This is going to be an unbelievable.
This is not becoming of you. You're a sore loser. You're very sore as a loser. And this isn't the first time you've lost a bet to me, but this one you're digging in a little bit deeper. You're actually thinking that this is going to happen, that he's going to return to the NFL. I'm telling you, he's not going back to the NFL.
I'm bringing up the fact he hasn't signed his contract.
Has he interviewed with anybody? Has anybody requested to interview him?
Okay. So this is where it gets kind of murky, right, when it comes to the Rooney Rule. Like, he's not going to do that dog and pony show. He can't. It would like
exactly.
Might be just get out.
Exactly.
So you know what? It's just kind of a back channel thing, and it would be all right. You're going to talk to him. You'll talk to him. Okay, we're going to interview. Here's the job. It would literally be like we interviewed Bill Belichick, and he was offered. He's our new head coach.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. There's procedure that needs to be followed. There's DEI that needs to be followed. The Rooney Rule. All of that needs to be followed. They can't just say in the shadows of an Italian restaurant, hey, we interviewed Bill Belichick and he's taking the job.
You don't think Jerry Jones would just circumvent all of that?
I actually think Jerry Jones is going to hire Deion Sanders. I think if the Cowboys hire Deion Sanders, it makes them if not the most interesting team in the NFL, the second most interesting team in the NFL.
Oh, they become like the offseason every day. What's happening?
Absolutely.
I will,
and that's what Jerry wants.
I will agree with you only to a certain point. I think Jerry would love it to have Deion as his head coach. If Deion's weighing out all the pros and cons, you're not getting Shador to Dallas. I don't know how they would. I don't know how you pull that off.
Probably not. No, and I guess then it becomes how much is it worth? How much is it worth to pull him away from University of Colorado besides the $8 million buyout? And how much is it worth to Deion to not be able to coach his kids in the NFL after saying the only way I'm going? Which, by the way, I could just say like that was probably BS. He's probably just saying that to get people off. Like he would love to do that, but it's not realistic.
Well, and I'm just bringing this up. Is he ready for that jump? That's a jump. When you're going from small college to 2 years at Colorado, and now you're going to be a head coach in the NFL?
Knows the NFL.
He does.
Knows the NFL. It's one of the greatest of all time to play. One of the greatest NFL players ever. And been around a lot of NFL players, stars, coaches, great coaches. I mean, is he ready for it? I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters.
I think we're all getting blinded by Jerry here. He should stay in the college game.
Well, of course.
And
but Jerry Jones doesn't care. He doesn't care about wins. When did he care about? He says he cares about wins. No, he cares about owning the news cycle. That's why he does his post-game scrums. That's why he does his 2 radio appearances every. He wants to be America's team. He wants everybody talking about them.
You don't think that through back channels Jerry Jones has reached out to Belichick?
But I don't think Belichick has nearly the impact that Deion has. That if Deion was there, they're more interesting than if Belichick is there. I think that, and you know, the only person I was there like, all right, if you're saying Belichick or Kellen Moore, yeah, Belichick would be more interesting for the Cowboys than Kellen Moore. And if Kellen Moore ends up being the coach of the Cowboys, okay, great, you've got Kellen Moore, but that doesn't make them more interesting, more newsworthy.
Well, if Deion, true or false, if this is going to happen, I would expect it to happen by Monday. Like, that's it. You are clear to hire Deion Sanders. He can get out of that Colorado contract.
I'm just surprised the Cowboys haven't cast a wide net the way we've seen functional organizations like the Jets and Bears do.
Can someone explain to me why you would waste time with Arthur Smith? Arthur Smith today interviewing with the New York Jets.
Yeah.
Well, of course, the Jets have interviewed everybody, including Mike Francesa. His Danger got me on a fake tweet.
Oh, who cares?
Yeah. Happy hour is next. We have time for your calls at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326. Lots to unpack from what we heard from Jeremy White, from Dan Fates of Buffalo Plus. We'll get to that. We'll get to your calls. We'll get to a round of shots. All next.
You're listening to the Streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills practicing indoors today, although we did see wide receiver Khalil Shakir fielding punts in the grass field in the snow right next to the practice facility. Ray Davis at practice today wearing a Guardian cap. He's still limited. Terrell Bernard talking about that Raven offense.
It's a challenge. Really explosive and dynamic offense. I think it starts, with the guys up front. They got a really good offensive line, big, physical, and then, handing the ball to 22. He's a big back, obviously runs hard. And then, when 8 has the ball in his hands, he's dynamic too. So they got a lot of playmakers.
Bills-Ravens can be heard Sunday on 96.5 WCMF. We'll join the game right after Amerks hockey. The Amerks playing in Hershey coming up on Sunday. One other Bills note, head coach Sean McDermott named the winner of the Greasy Neal Award that's given out for the Coach of the Year. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
If the Ravens play their game, and if they had the game plan that they did against the Steelers, and if they truly commit to the run and they execute, they're going to win the game. There's a reason why the Ravens are favored. There's a reason why they're power rated as the number 1 team in the NFL. It's because when they're clicking and they're rolling and they're playing their game, they're the toughest team to stop. Both teams have so much pressure on them because they've been so close. Okay, what's the next step? How can they get over that hump? Both teams need it badly, but obviously only one can advance.
Mike Danger.
Which team has more pressure on them? I think it's obviously the Bills. Obviously the Bills. They got to get this win. I think they have more pressure on them than the Ravens. And it does feel different this year than it did last year.
Gene Battaglia.
This feels like a bigger test, does it not? Yes. Baltimore's a good team. I think you want to keep that team off the field.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Your soundbite there with Terrell Bernard from your sports updates, listening through all of the star players on the Ravens offense. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about it, and Jeremy brought it up. I don't think it's a zero if Zay Flowers isn't out there for the Ravens. He didn't practice again today, and John Harbaugh saying earlier, hey, he doesn't really have to practice this week in order to play on Sunday. It might come down to being a game-time decision, but if it is a game-time decision, without him practicing all week, you figure he's not going to be effective. Zay Flowers is their wide receiving core. There really isn't anybody there that behind him, Bateman, that's it. It's Bateman and nobody.
Cover zero. Like, it sometimes mix those in. Like, what I'm saying is bring the safeties up at some point. Take some chances. These are corners in Buffalo that I would trust in a game like this. If you need a little bit of help and you want to just kind of give some different looks to Lamar Jackson, that would certainly be something. Look, the formula for Baltimore is simple. Run the ball, and they've got the best runner in the game that's going to go to the Hall of Fame in Derrick Henry. That you also have Lamar Jackson, the 1-2 punch. You have Justice Hill coming out of the backfield, and then you could dink and dunk with the tight ends there. But the idea that there's going to be some play action and Rashad Bateman is going to be 30 yards downfield open, I just don't see that.
You can join us anytime on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. That's 585-866 for FAN 866-4326. We appreciate you checking out the sports bar. However you may be doing so, you can hear us sounding our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app. We're looking our best on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment at The Fan Rochester on YouTube. We're even on Elon's Twitter. That's X, where Suburban Gorilla, this is not my burner account, it's just what my wife likes to call me in her spare time, an Isaiah likely toe, and the whole season changes. Ravens win against the Chiefs week 1, and all of a sudden it's a 3-team race for the number 1 seed. Amazing looking back, but if that happens, maybe Kansas City beats Denver, and we're hosting Cincinnati. It's crazy what one missed toe meant for the season. Y'all remember that play? I mean, that play was insane. It looked like a touchdown. It was a toe on the chalk, the back of the end zone in Arrowhead. And yeah, and the Ravens get off to that slow start to their season, kind of prompting them to have a must-win situation when they hosted the Bills in week 4 after starting the season 1-2.
So we do have some comments here on YouTube here, and I'm looking across here. So it's the monitors on the Johnny writing in. Danger's so worried about a fullback when they have Henry and Lamar. Ricard is a Francesa.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, who cares?
I don't know about that, man. I really don't. I mean, and I get it. Week 4, you didn't have your starters out there. You were dealing with some backup guys. But, man, look at some of those long runs in week 4 from Derrick Henry. It was Ricard leading the way and blowing up guys like Balin Spector and Cam Lewis. And maybe it's different. Maybe it's different with Milano in there. Maybe these guys can avoid that. But, man, he's not a zero. It's not a Francesa. I disagree with that.
Mike in Soda Spain. This goes back to one of the news items there. Greasy Neal played outfield for the 1919 Cincinnati Reds. He was a okay. Had anybody ever heard of the Greasy Neal Award before today?
I looked it up on
prestigious.
I looked it up on Urban Dictionary, and I wish I hadn't.
No,
I wish I hadn't. That's all I'm going to say about Greasy Neal. The Greasy Neal Award going to Sean McDermott, Coach of the Year. The Bills putting that out today. That's something.
Well, and then you put it out there with kind of a fact there. And the fact is that McDermott this year became the 5th coach in NFL history to have 5 straight years of 11 or more wins. Now, mind you, that probably should come with a little asterisk knowing that we've now it's 17 games, and back in the day at Tom Landry, it was 14 basically. So Landry, you have Belichick, you have Andy Reid, and you have Tony Dungy.
Pretty good company.
Yeah, and Sean McDermott in that. Look, all it's going to take for one, we're going to look at McDermott completely different, Danger, when you're talking it that way.
Oh, that's all it's going to take. You're
That's
right.
all it takes.
And if it does happen this year, we can truly say we're living in the golden age once again of Buffalo Bills football, because their dominance in this division is along the lines of what the Patriots did during their dynasty. We just don't have the rings, but we start getting there and we start showing it really is your division kind of bowing down to you the way the Chiefs have had no real competition in the West, save for this year. The Bills are living through that right now, and I don't know that it gets better in New England just because they hire Mike Vrabel. Jeremy White was right. I mean, I don't think anybody thought that the Jets and the Dolphins would be zeros. They were. They completely fell apart. Bills have just taken advantage of that, and they've beaten good teams along the way as well. They've dominated the division, but they've beaten good teams like Detroit. I still think the Niners are a good team. I know that they didn't have a good season, but they were able to beat teams down the stretch that I think a lot of us were like, ooh, I don't know. They're gonna be able to, they don't have to apologize for anything. And McDermott has done a good job this year. They have exceeded expectations for sure. If that's what winning a Coach of the Year award is really about, exceeding expectations, then he deserves it. He deserves the Greasy Neal. Just don't look it up on Urban Dictionary. Don't make the same mistake I did. You don't want to know what Greasy Neal is.
You're not kidding, are you? I can't tell sometimes with you. Jeremy White brought up a good point, and the point being, and I just forgot, I lost my train of thought because of your damn Greasy Neal take.
You brought up Greasy Neal, you degenerate. I don't know.
I'm reading comments there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
thank you for the comments on the YouTube channel, and we appreciate it if you like and subscribe. If that's your preferred way of consuming the show, we're all about it. We want to give you as many platforms as possible to enjoy the sports bar.
The point about McDermott being this, now I remember, talking about, you go back to November of 2023 when the Ty Dunn piece came out. And is it a change McDermott this year? And White wasn't buying into the, hey, he's more relaxed and everything, but it is noteworthy that, hey, I'm going to kind of invite Ty Dunn a little bit, even though he wrote this piece.
He's done well in rehabilitating his image.
They moved past that pretty quick.
Whether or not he's actually changed how he coaches, like with the guys, like I believe the intensity is still there, but at minimum he's done a great job of rehabilitating his image. And part of that is saying, you know what, I'm going to take the high road with Ty Dunn. He wrote this piece on me that I disagree with entirely. I could be pissed off at that guy for doing that and hold a grudge for the rest of my time here, or I can take the high road and hash it out and give him more access so I can show him through my words and my actions that what he thinks about me or what is being told to him by his sources is wrong, misunderstood. And let me explain why. And I think by doing that, yeah, you rehab your image. By lightening up a little bit and doing Snow Angels on ESPN, nobody remembers all of the things that Ty Dunn said. And Jeremy also brought up a good point. That wasn't a hit piece. It was very thorough. It was very extensive, and it was very complimentary as well as showing some of the reasons why the Bills can't get over this hump under Sean McDermott's leadership. I didn't have any problem with the piece last year as it was presented. I know it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I had zero issue with the Ty Dunn piece.
I think the timing of it was very opportunistic.
Sure.
Right after that Monday loss against Denver, like, wow, blame that on coaching. How is this team 500 with Josh Allen? And we're having legitimate conversations about the future, Sean McDermott, and then that drops?
Yeah.
That was
smart.
like, and that drops, and we should point out Ty Dunn doesn't work for the AP or the Buffalo News or anything.
Self-employed.
Subscribe here, click, and yeah.
And Gino, if you or I were in his shoes,
do the same thing.
We would do the exact same thing because it's good for business, and we got to put food on the table. I had zero issue with any of that, and I have zero issue with McDermott taking the high road and opening it up a little bit more. I mean, he gave Dunn another long, extensive piece just a couple of weeks ago, and he's rehabilitated his image in my eyes. He's still made some bad choices through the course of this season. There's been plenty of times where we've been like, the losses are spectacular losses.
Well, has he figured out clock management? I would point to the Rams game as soon as that happened, no. Even Tom Brady said, no, this is the wrong move.
That's right.
So,
and if Monday happens and it doesn't go the Bills' way, and it's because of something along those lines, you're going to hear it. We're going to hear it. This guy, it's the same thing. It's the same deal all over again. Can't believe we fell for it. This guy needs to go. Save your breath. He's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. They're not moving on from Sean McDermott. It would be crazy for them to move on from Sean McDermott. It's not happening. I don't care. Can you imagine a loss more disastrous than 13 seconds? I can't.
I don't want to.
I don't want to, and I can't. And even if that happened, he's still coming back next year. He's not losing his job, regardless of the and both of us, I'm guessing, are going to predict the Bills win. So,
I already did because I had to go on with PJ on his show, and, I don't like picking a game on the Wednesday before a Sunday game, but you know what? I'm sticking to it. The more I think about this, and not having Zay Flowers, like you said, that's not a nothing. Double negative. It is something that not to have him out there. It makes him a little more one-dimensional, and the idea that when things kind of get a little rocky for Lamar in the postseason, it starts to go sideways a little bit. Like what has to happen for the Ravens here in this game, get off to the early lead and run the ball, and then a few Bills turnovers the other end. That's the way I don't see a point for point or a tie game, and Lamar's going to get the ball and lead a game-winning drive. It's either a Ravens big win or a Bills close win, and I'm taking the Bills by a field goal here.
You brought up Lamar, and I love that this was brought up earlier. Sharp Football Analytics, Warren Sharp mentioned this, and if Lamar wants to have success, this is something to keep in mind. I don't even know that they're going to need to have Lamar drop back and be a pocket passer if the run game is working, but over the course of history, a lot of mobile quarterbacks actually late in the season and the postseason increase their scramble rate. They have the pass isn't there, and they scramble and they gain yards. The scramble play is one of the highest EPA plays out there. They're efficient. They're going to be positive most of the time. Mahomes increases his scramble rate. Allen increases his scramble rate. Jalen Hurts increases his scramble rate. Lamar decreases his scramble rate late in the season in the postseason by 2.9%. It's almost as if he hears the voices in his head saying, "You're not a pocket passer. You're just a guy that runs the ball." Like he has to prove his critics wrong by being that pocket passer. And if they want him to be successful, yeah, they're probably going to have a ton of design plays for him. And that RPO was so effective against the Steelers. But will Lamar get out of his own head and scramble? Because I'm nervous. If Lamar starts scrambling,
don't forget it.
Bad news for the Buffalo Bills.
You can write to us, our handle on X, the Fan Rochester. Chris writing in, does Deion even coach the actual team, though? He knows ball, but I think it's all the assistants.
I agree. Absolutely. Could you imagine Deion as the head coach with Kellen Moore coming in as the offensive coordinator? If he leaves Philadelphia, goes to Dallas to be the you don't see that happening?
No.
You see Kellen Moore saying, "I'm not coming back I'm in Philadelphia."
Why?
Because you'd be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys when Deion leaves.
No, like Jerry.
The Jason Garrett plan.
Well, I guess money would be kind of a reason. No, I don't see that. What I do see is Mike Zimmer staying on because Deion and Mike Zimmer they're really close.
Are they really?
Yeah.
That's so weird. That's a weird relationship.
No, it goes back to Zimmer's days when he was the defensive coordinator. That's how far back that goes when Deion was playing for the Cowboys.
I thought I saw that Zimmer was going to retire. Yeah, and when you see who he's marrying, it's like, yeah, dude, retire. You should retire. That's way to read the D, Zim. I think that guy is so washed as a coach. But if they were to keep him on board because Deion's the head coach, then yeah, Zimmer's a big part of that. And whoever you get to be your offensive coordinator is a big part of that.
I think if you're a Cowboy fan, you really don't want this. I think the rest of us here.
Yeah, exactly.
The rest of us, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Give me some springtime sound bites, everything
but
else.
What Cowboy fan doesn't see this for what it is? I mean, of course you don't want this because it doesn't guarantee you're going to win more games, but it will make you the most interesting team in the NFL by default. By default, win or lose, you are now the most interesting team in the NFL. Colorado hasn't won anything. They're one of the most interesting teams in college football, even though they're in the Big 12 and even though they haven't won anything.
They haven't, right.
You know, like it will be a something if Deion ends up with Dallas. That makes them, that catapults them into a different stratosphere of relevancy. And I think it is a matter of who your assistants are. Hire the right assistant coaches. Deion, is overseeing. He's the CEO. He's the guy. He's the face. Jerry's the face, but Deion, could take some of that off of Jerry.
Yeah, don't hire Kellen Moore. Don't hire some no-name Todd Monken or some coordinator we don't know. Hire
Todd
Brian.
Monken's good. Todd Monken could be a head coach. Well, I should say Todd Monken is a pretty good offensive mind. I think.
Would you be happy with him in Chicago?
I think I would be. Yeah, I think I would be. I mean, I'm going against what I said earlier this week. Really, the only person I want is Marcus Freeman. You could sell me on Ben Johnson. I don't think Ben Johnson's coming to the Bears. And if it was Todd Monken, yeah. If it's Arthur Smith, no. If it's Mike McCarthy, I'm going to become a soccer fan. Next case.
You already are a soccer fan.
My daughters are big into soccer. They got like their little crushes on different soccer players. I'm like, you're not even watching the game. You don't even care about the game. You just care about the players at this point. I think that's interesting. I know what you're going to say next since we're talking about coaches and vacancies. You're going to say, where's my box of one? Get ready because Belichick is coming back to the NFL. And, Gino, I'm here to tell you what Michael Lombardi says, what Bill Belichick's consigliere says goes. He's not leaving the Tar Heels. He's not coming back to the NFL.
All right. So this is the story. I'm just here to tell the facts. You don't think it's weird that you have the announcement, the school, the press conference, everything that happened, and Belichick's wearing the UNC gear. He's out on the road.
He hasn't signed the contract.
He hasn't signed the contract. It legitimately says in the contract also, because sometimes you could also have, hey, we had an agreement. That's binding versus non-binding. Legitimately, it just says right there, this is a non-binding agreement.
Well, if he does sign it, does it make it binding, or does it still, because he's signing something that says it's a non-binding agreement, does it still give him the flexibility to leave anywhere? It doesn't matter if he signs it then.
So first of all, it was the buyout. Oh, wow. He's got this $10 million buyout that after June 1st it becomes $1 million? You're kidding me. That seems really, really low. Danger, if he didn't sign anything, what is the point? Here's also this. This is where we like to dig a little deeper here in the sports bar. How did this get out? Who wanted this out? Was it somebody in the North Carolina athletic department that might be getting a little skittish? Is this someone in Belichick's circle that's putting this out there? Who put this out there today? What agenda is this?
Is it somebody from North Carolina who's not happy with the idea that it's not signed?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I think it is. Yeah.
That I will buy. I would buy that. Here comes this guy to run the football program. How committed is he? He hasn't even signed his contract.
But
he hasn't hired any of his. Well, he hired an assistant today. But
I would have said this. Were they so stargazed? Were they just so enamored with Bill Belichick? Hey, we've got a deal. Great. What do you want to do at the press conference Wednesday? Okay, will you sign? Oh, yeah, I'll get it to you.
Was it on his agent's desk? It's just been sitting on his agent's desk. They haven't been able to
You're Bill Belichick. You have this out here today. And the fact that Lombardi is putting this out there, like, okay, you created this distraction, Michael. You're the GM of this program. Have your head coach sign the paperwork.
But he keeps saying the same thing. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to the NFL.
Till he goes somewhere.
He's not going anywhere because he hasn't even been requested for an interview.
Well, that's where this gets weird. What is the penalty for a team that hires it, but we're not going to be disclosed? Ooh. That you talked to Bill Belichick and you interviewed him.
You're watching this as it unfolds. Every team is putting out there who they've interviewed, who they've got on deck. It's a circus. It's a social media frenzy. And I don't have a problem with it. They're using it as content. Hey, get you excited because we talked to Arthur Smith today, Jets fans. We've conducted our interview. Just keeping you updated.
Yeah, content, yes. Excitement about Arthur Smith.
If they had an interview with Bill Belichick, you don't think they would want to share that, publicize that, share it with the fan base to get them lathered up? I think every fan base would get excited if they knew their team who's looking for a head coach took time out to interview arguably the greatest head coach of all time. Not happening. Hasn't happened. Won't happen. Lombardi's right. We're trying to make it something that it isn't. And he's recruiting. Bill's working. He's hiring assistants.
Said by a man who loves his box wine.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I cracked it open a couple nights ago.
Oh, wait a second. You're cheap. You only bought me this cheap.
Well, okay, here's a take.
All right.
Wine tastes the same.
Oh, get out of here.
All wine tastes the same.
Dude, you are uneducated.
Oh, is that what it is?
You are a fool.
Wow.
Your palate.
Wow.
Your palate must be sandpaper.
I'm
what are
not
you
insulted.
talking about?
I'm not insulted that my
all
friend Gene
tastes the
Battaglia
same?
called me a fool and uneducated, all because I said all wine tastes the same.
Did you?
I'm not alone. I'm not alone on this.
Okay. No, people who don't have a palate are you're yes.
I'm Gene Battaglia and I have a palate. Let me show you my greasy Neil. Gene, you could give me a box of wine and a $200 bottle of wine. Put them in two separate glasses. I'll try one after the other, and I won't be able to tell the difference.
Oh, my God. Danger, if you go down, like, what's the cheapest wine? Rex Goliath, the one with the rooster?
Oh, yeah.
That's crap.
I drink it.
There. It doesn't matter to you.
I'll drink it. And I'll be like, that's pretty good.
You probably like when you go up, you are Catholic when you get this. No, it's always like the Rex
Tastes
Goliath.
the same.
Yeah,
Tastes the same. Yeah. I was drinking that Rex Goliath. They make the big bottle, right? They get a bigger bottle.
Yeah, Yellowtail.
More value. Yeah,
wine,
like the value. That's
Barefoot.
That's what sold me on the box wine that you told me. You're like, oh, it's a great value, and nobody can tell how much you drink. You can have more, but more wine for less buck. You're right, and I really can't tell the difference anyway. So I'm a box wine guy. Thanks to my co-host, Gene Battaglia, who now tells me I'm uneducated and a fool.
No,
I know I'm not alone. There are people listening right now to us here in the sports bar that agree with me. Wine is wine. It all tastes the same.
It's like you saying that a Leaping Hazy IPA is kind of akin to Old Milwaukee.
No, I can tell the difference between beer. That's different.
Okay, so then why can't you can't tell the difference between wine?
Cannot. Tastes the same.
Okay, you are uneducated.
All tastes the same. What does my education have to do with my taste buds? It all tastes the same to me.
You're not educated on wine. I'm not talking about your.
All right. Yeah, you might be right. I might not be educated on wine. I've done a couple of wine tours, but still, I'm like, okay, it tastes the same. Oh, this is a white wine. Okay, that white wine tastes like that white wine. This is a Gewürz. Okay, that Gewürz tastes like this. Oh, maybe it's a little spicier. Okay. This one's really sweet. Yes, it is very sweet, but it tastes like that other white, sweet wine that you just fed me 30 seconds ago.
Did I call you a fool?
You didn't call me a fool. It's all right, Gene.
I don't think I called you a fool.
You did call me a fool. We can roll the tape. You fool. You uneducated fool, I think is what you said. Gino, I know I'm not alone.
Jordan writing in on YouTube, wine, it's just grapes in the end.
You're right.
No.
Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate you.
All right. Well, then, you know what? I am going. How embarrassed are you going to be if Belichick comes back? You're not even considering.
It's not going to happen, but if it happens, I'll be a man of my word and I'll pay up the bet. I'll get you a box of wine.
We always pay up our bets.
Yeah,
there,
we know Welsh.
All right. One time I forgot.
Forgot. Executive producer was about ready to throw you out of the house. You lost another bet to Danger? You're done. You can't bet. Don't bet with him anymore. Speaking of beer, tomorrow, come hang with us. Man, happy hour tomorrow is going to be awesome at Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the Arts. We're live from 3 until 6. We will have, consider us your pregame before the pregame on Sunday. And while you're there, score a 4-pack to go for Sunday of the limited run Leaping Hazy IPA playoff edition. You remember this is the can that has a quarterback that you may be familiar with doing super things, leaping over linebackers in a single bound. It's available only at Three Heads, and it's available only while they last, so we would encourage you to get out early. We're there from 3 until 6 with delicious Three Heads beer, Freddy's Woodfire Pizza, and we'll have special guests on set as well. Chris Trapasso will be joining us on the phone from CBS Sports, but during happy hour tomorrow after 5, former Baltimore Raven, former Syracuse Orange lineman, Rochesterian Adam Terry joins us.
Yeah, if you're wondering, okay, when you're going to come out, who's Adam Terry? You'll notice who Adam Terry is. My
yes.
gosh, yes,
he's an NFL lineman. He's a former NFL lineman, and he knows ball, and man, I can't wait to have Adam Terry up on stage with us so we can just we all kind of agree, right, that if this game is going to be won and lost in the trenches, we want to get a guy that knows and lived in those trenches. Give us his insight on who might have an advantage come Sunday. So Adam Terry will join us during happy hour tomorrow. Live from Three Heads. We'll be there from 3 until 6, Atlantic Avenue, in the neighborhood of the Arts with the fan, Rochester. Gino, it's time for a round of shots.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to this. We'll play you some of your favorites here when it comes to Mr. Baseball, who left us today.
Hate that news.
Yeah, the Mets making a signing today. Not what you think, though. Boy, Jim Harbaugh was battling some things, come to find out. We'll tell you what's up with the Chargers coach, and then something that we were kind of saying was really bad for one particular team this year when it came to television. Sounds like it's going to be coming to an end.
Okay.
This is the NFL stepping in.
We've got a round of shots on the way next. Don't forget about Last Call, where you can have the final say at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95. update.
Just two players, again, on the Bills injury report. Ray Davis remaining in the concussion protocol. He was limited today wearing a Guardian cap. Meanwhile, Alec Anderson was also limited. Josh Allen talking about Kyle Hamilton and that Raven defense.
He's a heck of a player, though. I mean, he's flying around all over the field. He's a ball magnet. They got some absolute studs on that defensive side of the ball, too. So, got to be aware of where he's at, along with a few other guys. But, slightly different role than what we saw earlier in the year.
Bills-Ravens can be heard Sunday on 96.5 WCMF. We'll join the game right after Amherst hockey in Hershey. Amherst 3 games in 3 days begins tomorrow night, the team home against Lehigh Valley. Back to the Bills. One other award. Head coach Sean McDermott named the winner of the Greasy Neal Award. That's an award given out for Coach of the Year. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Got a smart speaker at home? Listen to the sports leader, The Fan Rochester at home, by asking it to play 95.7 The Fan.
There isn't technically in Urban Dictionary a greasy Neal, but there is a greasy knee, and you don't want to know what a greasy knee constitutes. And I'm probably going to get fired for just looking it up on a work computer. So I'm taking one for the team, guys. Whatever you do, don't Google greasy Neal in Urban Dictionary. No,
since the Bills are playing, you went viral one time for the it had something to do with Jim Harbaugh.
The Harbaugh handshake.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Harbaugh handshake is on Urban Dictionary, and that was submitted by, I believe, Friends of Danger. I don't know who submitted it, but somebody submitted the Harbaugh handshake. It's filthy, but it all stemmed from the Jim Harbaugh, Jim Schwartz.
Yes.
Handshake at the end of the Lions-Niners game. It was a contentious handshake. There was words exchanged. It was not friendly. And Harbaugh handshake sure sounds like it belongs in Urban Dictionary. And there it is.
There it is. Well, we're learning today about Greasy Neal, and yes, I guess if you didn't know about the award, don't feel you're not alone on that. Danger, if this isn't the most savory stat of all time, Buffalo became the first team in NHL history last night to score a goal in a period where they did not register a shot on goal.
Oh.
Like, how is that even possible? Well, if you didn't stay with it last night, no worries. Buffalo was outshot in the third period, 8-0. Carolina's actually down in this game. They pulled goaltender Dustin Tokarski. Sidebar.
Yeah.
This is how little we think of you.
Yeah.
But, okay. So, Ryan McLeod gets it. He's walking in for an empty net. That's when he's slashed from behind. By rule, that's not a penalty shot. That's, with an open net, it's an automatic goal. Now, that I never knew. Buffalo, 9 points behind Columbus for the second playoff spot in the East following the win over Carolina. The Penguins come to town tomorrow night.
Yeah, damn ESPN. I was watching the scroll this morning and saw the Sabres beat the Hurricanes, and McLeod gets the hat trick, and then they flashed the stat afterwards. Sabres are 6-3-1 in their last 10 games. And I just kind of thought to myself, huh? No,
stop.
No, I say 9 times. 9, German for no. I say no. I need a big win streak. You're going to get me back with a win streak similar to the losing streak that you had. You need to counterbalance that horrific streak from earlier this year. Terrible.
Was there a character in any sport quite like Bob Uecker? Passed away today. Former catcher with the Milwaukee Braves, Uecker, dabbling in stand-up comedy, honing a self-deprecating style. He was discovered, became a regular with Johnny Carson. Meanwhile, he was still the play-by-play radio voice for the Milwaukee Brewers. Beginning in their second year of existence, 1971, he was doing something every year right up into the end. Uecker was diagnosed with lung cancer last year. Bob Uecker was 90.
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed. Ball 4. Ball 8. Low, and Vaughn has walked the bases loaded on 12 straight pitches. Boy, how can these guys lay off pitches that close?
He's the best.
Oh,
you talk about self-deprecation. I must be in the front row. I forgot about that. You mentioned it earlier.
Oh,
so
yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah. The Miller Lite commercial. Yeah. Oh, I must be in the front row.
Yeah.
He missed the time.
Yeah.
He missed the time. Yeah, just like, honestly, one of the best TV spots ever.
He was great. Yeah. He was great, and he will be missed.
Do you remember the show he was on? ABC.
Oh, crap. It was a bad sitcom. What was it? He wasn't on Elf.
No.
What was the one that he was on?
Mr. Belvedere.
Mr. Belvedere, who famously had to go to the hospital once because he sat on his package and it sent him to the hospital. The actor who played Mr. Belvedere.
This is before Amazon. You're talking about that package.
Yeah.
Wow.
Again, don't Google that on a work computer. Greasy Neil, Mr. Belvedere.
The New York Mets, I don't know how to segue out of that. They made a signing today. No, not Pete Alonso. The team is bringing back outfielder Jesse Winker. 1 year, $7 million. Winker, high-energy guy. He is a native of Buffalo.
The infamous Mr. Belvedere story is actually true. Google has confirmed it. He sat on his own balls.
How's that even possible? I don't believe that. I think that's probably the excuse they gave.
Hey, the internet doesn't lie, Gene.
You might remember this. Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh, to bring him up the second time in this segment, left a Week 6 game against Denver briefly due to a heart issue. Well, he's getting that fixed now. He's going to have what they call an ablation of the heart. It's a procedure that treats irregular rhythms. It involves creating small scars in the heart to prevent abnormal electrical signals. Harbaugh's also going to have hip replacement surgery.
Jeez.
That's a lot for a guy who's 61. Well, remember, he did play quarterback in this league before he became a head coach.
You going to be a guy that has to get a hip replacement surgery? How are your hips feeling? Your hips feeling okay? Knock on wood.
I'm fine.
No
dude.
issues. All right, just making sure. My sister-in-law had hip surgery last summer, and
she's young.
She's young, and now, and I know people younger than both of us that have had hip replacement surgery and swear by it. They're like, "Oh my God, it's life-changing." I've never had any issues with my hips, but I also have a core that is quite gelatinous, so maybe that's part of why there's no hip issues here, because I have no flexibility and a core of gelatin.
Finally, if you're a New York Giant fan, you saw the warning signs of what was going to be a bad year in HBO's Hard Knocks offseason. It might have done the most damage in terms of a sports reality TV show to a particular team. Seeing Joe Shane being told by the owner, do not let Saquon sign with Philadelphia. Well, an NFL executive went on McAfee, did not paint a picture that the show is going to be coming back. For starters, you would need a willing team, he says. And the NFL will not force a team to volunteer for an off-season Hard Knocks.
So the Giants volunteered for that?
Yes.
Oh, that's a mistake.
It was terrible. Maybe they thought, let's just get this out of the way. We've talked to Brandon Beane about this. I mean, actually, like right after we're seeing these episodes, and what Beane says, look, I'll do whatever Mr. Pegula tells me to do if the league tells me to do it, but who's putting their hand up?
Nobody. Nobody should put their hand up for that, especially given what it did to the Giants. I really think that had a major impact on how they're portrayed or how they were viewed by many this season. I mean, out of all the bold predictions we made, I felt most confident in my Giants prediction that they were going to be picking first in the NFL draft. Now, they're not going to be picking first in the NFL draft, but they were one of the worst teams in the league.
Listen, you get it correct on that. I think that's close enough.
I mean, and it all stemmed from the dysfunction that was apparent watching that show. It just did not paint a picture of a team that had it together or had any sort of alignment. I thought that was something they were forced to do. But if the Giants volunteered their services for off-season Hard Knocks, no sympathy, man. You get what you get. I mean, nobody wants to do that show.
I think the show in season, there's just so much content out there. I haven't watched one episode of the AFC North in season.
Could you sit down and actually devote an hour or 45 minutes or however long length the program is? Would you do that, or would you rather just see a 2-minute clip in your feed as you're scrolling.
Well, this is where we're at now.
This is where we're at now. It doesn't make any sense. I get what they're trying to do, but Jesus, just turn Hard Knocks into a Twitter feed and then, give us the best moments that we can see in our timeline, because that's really, I don't have time to sit down and watch off-season Hard Knocks or in-season Hard Knocks. But if you give me the juiciest moments of it, yeah, I'll consume that.
Well, I think this is the magic formula, is that when the show is on during training camp and it's August, we are starved. We are so excited for the season. I don't care. I'm going to sit down with the Jets or whoever it is, and I want to watch what's going on in their camp. And you will sit down for that time. I don't think it works any other time of the year.
Yeah. That's going to do it for us this afternoon. We're going to pack up now and be ready for you tomorrow afternoon. And we invite you to hang out with us from 3 until 6 as we broadcast live the Sports Bar and Friday Football Talk Live, the playoff edition at Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the Arts. Special afternoon. We'll have some guests stopping by. I'll tell you about in a second. You can score a 4-pack to go for Sunday's game of the limited run Leaping Hazy IPA playoff edition. It's available only at Three Heads and only while they last. Stop out early to make sure you can get yours for Sunday. Have some delicious Three Heads beer. Have some Freddy's Woodfire Pizza. It is the perfect pregame spot, just a couple days early. Pregame on Sunday, of course. Friday Football Talk Live, the playoff edition. That's happening tomorrow evening, tomorrow afternoon, 3 until 6. Three Heads with the Fan Rochester. Chris DePasso will be joining us at 3:25, and we'll get his insight on this matchup between the Bills and the Ravens. We'll also, we'll talk a little NFL draft as well. We have a college football playoff championship coming up on Monday night, and then we'll be joined during happy hour. We'll be joined by former Ravens offensive lineman, former Syracuse Orange offensive lineman, and now Rochesterian Adam Terry.
John, sorry we couldn't get to your call.
Oh, is that John from Rochester?
It is John.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, John. He'll probably show up Friday Football Talk.
I hope
tomorrow.
so. Maybe he's RSVPing.
Spartan. He is just a role model for the rest of us. If you missed Jeremy White from WGR or Dan Fates at 13mm Sports and Buffalo Plus, you can get those conversations wherever you get your shows. Just search out the Sports Bar. That includes the free-to-download Odyssey app, AUDACY. Big thanks to everybody who watched the Sports Bar on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester or on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. JR Sport Brief next. Have a great night. Talk to you at Three Heads tomorrow afternoon starting at 3 on The Fan.